What's going on, everybody? It's Detroit Gamesters for episode 11. And this is Shamir starting us off. I got my buddy Arjun here.
LFG.
And all right, it's been an eventful 2 weeks, so a lot for us to talk about. So me as an Xbox fanboy, I wanted to go straight to talk about Xbox, but Arjun felt like we should go in the order of announcements. So,
Yes.
but I guess first we could probably start with Switch 2, right?
Yeah.
So, Arjun is a friggin' trooper over here, hooking up him and all of his friends. How many Switch 2s did you buy?
I got four.
Or is that something? Can you say that on
I can
record?
say on record. I got four. I'm a bit spoiled. So for all the people that couldn't get one, yeah, I probably took yours.
Okay, but it's not like you're flipping them, right? You're
I
giving
was
them
not flipping
for
them.
fair market price to all your friends, which kudos to you, bro.
Yeah,
Kudos
to be
you.
fair market value, MSRP.
What a guy, bro. I don't know anyone who does that.
Like, I stood in line at a couple of different stores, GameStop, Best Buy, Walmart, you name it. To be fair, I got a couple of them delivered to me through the mail, through the postal, or through Walmart. And Walmart, I didn't even know if I was going to get it for certain because they basically canceled my orders due to fraud charges. And I know this was all over Reddit too, but Walmart did a really cool thing where basically when they canceled your item, they allowed you 24 hours to re-add it to your cart and repurchase it a day before. And I thought that was pretty cool, the fact that Walmart was able to figure something out. So I got mine delivered to me 6 a.m. by a local Walmart, and it gave me free Pringles.
That guy's working hard, bro.
And free Coke. And you know what? That's kind of legit. Out of all
So
the
not
places,
only did you make that guy show up, or girl show up at 6 a.m., you took his breakfast too.
Yeah, I legit did. Honestly, I've had great experiences with Walmart now the last several generations. I got my PS5 through Walmart. It did not fail me. I got my Nintendo Switch, I think, through Walmart. And I think I got maybe an Xbox through Walmart. And I can't remember if it was the One X or the Series. I can't remember. And now I've gotten the Switch. No problems with Walmart.
Honestly, I was
whatsoever.
gonna ask you, out of all of them, what do you feel like is a reliable? If you had if you had tried to make me have a bet to try and guess, I would have totally guessed wrong. I would have never guessed Walmart in 100 years.
Dude, I know.
I would honestly think Best Buy would be the smoothest process, right?
That's what you would think. So Best Buy, I passed by Best Buy after I went to GameStop midnight release, which, by the way, my local GameStop had 200 plus people. Dude, it was raining, like pouring, and people did not have any shelter, and they were getting drenched. And there was a line wrapped all the way around Best Buy, and they weren't letting people in until they were ready to start distributing. So this was even past midnight. They still hadn't left people until like 12:30, I think.
So how does that work? Like, people pre-order, that they have their code or their receipt or something, and then they just show up?
Yes, but they had extra units for people that didn't pre-order, so it was probably a crapshoot, and maybe a couple of people got lucky.
Oh, wow. Oh, man, that's pretty daring for someone.
Yeah, I would not have done that. But I would say for sure Walmart was the smoothest because their website their infrastructure could handle the traffic. Best Buy's website basically crashed in April, and it was really hard to get. And same with Target. Target canceled a bunch of pre-orders and never got it back to anyone. And for those that pre-ordered from Target, a lot of you I know still don't have your Switch 2 yet. A lot of the people are complaining that you're getting them by June 11th. So sorry for everyone that kind of got it from Target.
Man, oh man. So I know you are the freaking collector over here. I mean, this man is so successful. He got the 20th edition. It's the 20th or 30th edition of the... I think it's 30th, right?
30th,
for the PlayStation 5, right? That looks retro. So this man somehow has the skills with the computers.
I do. I honestly, when I had these 4 Switch 2 consoles in my house, I basically at one point in my house, I had maybe 9 handhelds, maybe 10.
Oh my god!
I had multiple Switch 1s. I had a Steam Deck. I had 2 ROG Allies.
So I think that you would be a good estimator on this.
Yeah.
Okay, how would you compare this launch, and especially the amount of inventory, compared to others? Because I know like Nintendo made a bunch of announcements saying, don't worry guys, we're going to have enough inventory.
Yeah, so the rumor is right now, and it hasn't been substantiated or confirmed yet, but it sounds like they sold 3 million in their first day, which...
is that good?
It's really good. So to kind of compare, PlayStation 5 I think sold between 2 and 3 million, and it looks like Switch is going to have sold maybe 4 to 6 million within another week or two. I think the estimates right now is that within the first month it'll be reaching 6
So
million.
Does it look like it's selling better than the Switch 1, or too early to tell?
But it looks like it's selling better than the Switch 1, and it looks like it's going to outpace potentially PlayStation 5 in the first month.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So I'll be honest, I did not expect the Switch 2 to sell this well.
Yeah,
I thought that a lot of people would, kind of be put off by the fact that there isn't like a marquee title other than like Mario Kart,
yeah,
that demands that you upgrade. It doesn't look that different. I feel like the hardcore gamers that are plugged in are gonna know for sure that it's like, the next
yeah.
console. But like some casual people, they'd be like, "Oh, can I just get you a Switch OLED because OLED
Um,
is better?" So I didn't expect it to sound like hotcakes.
I think the appeal here was that there's been what I think 150 million Switches that have been sold now, and a lot of those people are converting to the Switch 2 because I think at least Nintendo did a good job of showcasing that your Switch One games would run
Yeah, that's
better.
also true.
And I think through word of mouth, people were playing this days before too. And honestly, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, they run so extremely well on this. It's such a new experience for me that I'm actually considering replaying the
Dude,
entire
you
game.
talked so much smack about Scarlet and Violet.
Dude, it was
So
so bad.
if I'm remembering, I actually really liked Sword and Shield, and you hated it, and
Yeah,
that
I
was
didn't like
actually my
it.
favorite because I don't know, I just really liked the legendaries. I thought they were
Yeah, that
super
is cool.
boss. I did not like Scarlet and Violet as much, but I think overall I enjoyed the game a lot more than you.
Really. Yeah,
So
it's funny. The game actually is smooth enough that not only does it run at faster frame rates, you're getting more density and more objects appearing on your screen. So whether it's handheld or on TV, you're seeing more Pokemon. So it looks more lively. Like it doesn't
yeah.
look like a dead open world. So
So
I
I guess
think,
one thing I'm wondering about, with some of the Switch games, you're having to pay like $10 to get, a good amount of, upgrades, right? Like Legend of Zelda. But here it kind of feels like with Pokemon, you're getting those upgrades and you don't have to pay extra
yeah.
for it.
So some upgrades are free and some are you have to pay. I think the effort they put into Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is that it supports HDR, it supports the new memory storage, so it's faster in loading, and on top of it, it runs at 60 FPS and I think 1440p or 1080p on the portable and 4K and dock mode. So that was such a substantial update that like, okay, can I understand the $10 upgrade? Yes, and it's free for those that already have the NSO online membership with the expansion pass. So
Okay.
if you already have the membership, you're already getting it included for
Yeah,
free.
yeah.
So, but if you don't, you can buy it piecemeal. So I think I was like kind of okay with that. Now
I
you're
mean, it's better
basically
than PlayStation. Like I feel like PlayStation will charge you $10 and you'll get nothing, right?
yeah
And like here, you're getting something that seems valuable.
yeah
It's just, I mean, Xbox really does it nice with their upgrades.
yeah. Now Xbox is like most of it's free. It just determines what system you're on
Yeah.
and says okay. So I still think Xbox is the most consumer friendly. Am I okay with this? I'm still stuck in the middle because games like Mario Odyssey had free updates, Zelda Echoes of Wisdom and Link's Awakening and Pokemon all free. But when you look at something like Zelda again, if I was on a PC and then I had a game that had an upgrade, like that's just a patch. They're not going to charge you an extra $10 unless they remaster the game, and maybe
Yeah.
you can constitute this as a remaster, but it's not a full remaster. It's just like more of like a cleanup.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, but it is what it is. I think they did a phenomenal job. And I think if you put this into perspective, I think some reports were currently out there report that for PC handhelds, there's only maybe like 4 to 5 million out in
Yeah, there's
the,
barely nothing.
yeah, and 2 to 3 million is the Steam Deck, and maybe 1 to 2 million is the ROG Ally. Put that in perspective, 3 million
Switch
already
2 is already
sold.
outselling them,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's already outselling. So I think it's just kind of crazy. It's like first party brand and first party IP for Nintendo
I
is such a
mean,
huge thing.
Nintendo has worked tirelessly for decades, right? Like this is the fruit of their labor. Like,
Yeah,
everybody knows Mario, everyone knows Zelda, and Pokemon especially. I feel like Pokemon is really like, one of the things that's gonna keep people just glued in and locked into the Nintendo
yeah,
system. So, yeah, I guess for me, as someone who hasn't really been a Nintendo fan, I think this has been kind of the most boring like release for me. I'm happy I have it.
agreed.
I do like the fact that the screen is massive. I think it's gonna get some getting used to for me. I know the ROG Ally is bigger, but I don't know, something about the Switch 2 just seems off for me. Like I think it's a combination of it being way thinner than I expect and
Yeah,
also way like longer
that's
and
the thing.
wider. Like cuz I'm used to the ROG and I'm like, "All right, this is a thick chunky boy,"
Yeah,
And so I
well,
have like good grips.
yeah. So if it because of the length, I was hoping for it to be a little more wider and heftier because then it would feel more
Yeah.
comfortable. But now as I'm holding it while I lay in bed, I feel like I could drop the thing and just break
Right?
it.
Right? In a weird way, like even though I feel like the build quality for the Switch 2 is better, am more afraid of breaking my Switch 2, right?
Yeah,
Because it makes me feel like I'm holding half an iPad.
yeah,
While opposed to the Switch OLED, it like struck a balance between feeling like a toy and also
Yes,
feeling like a
yeah, like
gaming
a Fisher
console.
toy,
There's like
and
something that's like just the right plastically and clicky that
yeah,
makes it feel like a hybrid, right? But here I'm like, oh no, this is like a smart device. You know, this is like a high end
yeah,
consumer product. Like,
it does feel
I
more
don't
premium.
want to break this in
Yeah,
an ironic kind of twist. So yeah, I guess maybe I'm just too used to chunky boys, you know, like the
no,
ROG
I
Ally,
think.
and I think with time I'll get more used to this
Mhm.
one. But right now, just feeling in the hand, it felt like premium, but it really felt weird.
Yeah, I purchased a D brand case that goes around the Switch
Is it the
2.
kill switch or whatever?
Not the kill. Yeah, actually, the kill switch for the Switch 2. So it will ship in a couple weeks. It's not here yet, but it's unique in the sense that it adds like these grips to the
Yeah,
side
that
so
would
that
be
it
kind of
will feel
nice.
more comfortable. I hope that thing does it justice because the kill switch is pretty popular for all their other products. So I think that's going to help solve my problem because the way it does is it adds like a grip to the side, so it makes it feel like you're holding a controller rather than just like the sides of the Switch console. So I think that's going to fix my problem. But I agree. I highly recommend anyone that gets the Switch 2 to probably buy some sort of protective cover or replacements to the Joy-Cons. Because for the Switch 1, I had the Hori split pad, and that thing was a game changer.
So, you know, one thing I'm also wondering about while you were saying all that, you know, do you think it's odd that Donkey Kong is not coming out on day one?
Yeah, it's kind of
Because
weird.
I was thinking about it, like if it was coming out a few months later, I'd be like, all right, they needed time to really clean up. But like, what is it like 4 weeks away? You
Yeah,
know,
like they definitely wanted Mario Kart to have its shine.
right? I feel like they spaced it out because right now, you know, if you're getting a Switch 2, you're getting Mario Kart. You
Yeah,
know, because what else I mean, you can get
they
Cyberpunk, but like
yeah.
a lot of people have already played and beat Cyberpunk. So really, what else are you gonna buy with your Switch 2?
Yeah, I know. I think there's definitely like overlap in the audience. So if I had to choose, if I was limited on money because I thought the console was already too expensive, and I had to choose, I'm getting Donkey Kong over Mario Kart.
Yeah. So I
So
wonder if they did that because they're like, oh, they might cannibalize each other and we'll
yeah,
space them out. So
yeah,
then people will just play Mario Kart,
yeah,
right? And they'll be like, oh, I got it for $50. It's a
yeah. And now
steal.
I'll buy
And
Donkey
then
Kong.
they'll be like,
So
oh, I buy Donkey Kong in a
yeah,
month.
it's like a double dip, and on top of it, it's diabolical because they made more Switch 2 consoles with the Mario Kart bundle than the one without. So on top of that, they basically force you to buy Mario Kart, even though it's $30 cheaper, and then they're gonna make you get Donkey Kong because you might not like Mario Kart.
Yeah, I mean that's how you get what is it like 50, 60 million? How
Yeah.
many copies of Mario Kart 8 were sold? Something
They're at
absurd.
60 plus million, 63 million.
Something absurd. Oh
Now, will
man.
this game sell as much? I don't know. But what I will say for sure is that was a whoever is like ahead of their like business and finances. That's diabolical. You know what I'm
I mean,
saying? It's a good business
I
strategy.
don't think it's gonna sell as much. I don't know. I
Yeah, I
mean,
don't think
I
so.
do think the price is gonna turn some people off. Like if you're not buying this as a bundle, I
Yeah,
mean
you're
that
not buying it at all.
$80 is really gonna hurt, you
Yeah.
know? And
What's
I
to stop people from not playing Mario Kart 8 Deluxe anymore? Like the people are going to continue to play
yeah,
that. Normally, when you have a great game and then you make a sequel, you're not going to all of a sudden just switch. Whatever, like people continue to play the OG, like Counter Strike and Team
yeah.
Fortress, and they don't want to like,
And the
it's
thing is,
just
like, at its core, Mario Kart is Mario Kart, right? So
yeah.
even if they make an open world, like, how,
Which by the way is disappointing. Most people already said this that the open world aspect is the most underwhelming portion of the game.
yeah, I was hearing that there isn't really much to do. You just basically drive
Yeah.
around. And so, I mean, the fact that there's what, double player count, like, that could be different enough. But again, like, it doesn't seem like it's such a massive advancement that you have to buy it, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't feel to me like a must buy game in the same way that Breath of the Wild felt, like
Yeah.
when Zelda came, right?
Yeah.
So like as a non-gamer, as soon as I had honestly after I bought the Wii U and I was so hyped for it, and then that was that was my first Nintendo console. I was like, I'm never buying the Switch, but just the hype after um, Zelda, Mario Odyssey, and then Super Smash Bro. I was like, bro,
Yeah, you have to get it.
I have to.
Well, I think they made a mistake in calling the new Mario Kart game Mario Kart World because that is signifying that hey, this is an open world
Yeah,
and
it
this
kind
is
of
the
feels like a live
mainstay.
service name.
Well, I think they called it World because it's like an open world and basically they're trying to signify like this is the main cell. They should have called it Mario Kart Knockout Tour because everyone is basically saying that the Knockout Tour mode is the best thing. And now, does that justify me upgrading from 8 Deluxe just to play a new mode and with 24 people? Maybe, maybe not. But if they had called it Knockout Tour specifically, people would have said, Oh, I know specifically about this one mode that
Yeah, yeah.
revolutionizes the game a little better.
Yeah, I never even thought about that, but that would be an interesting way to
Yeah,
go because they have used names like that, right?
yeah,
Like deluxe or wasn't
deluxe. And,
like seven or one of them. They had a
yeah,
weird
it
name.
was called I'm already forgetting, but yeah,
Some
yeah,
Mario Kart trivia over here.
yeah. So I just think that they should have called it. They could have said, "Hey, Mario Kart Knockout Tour," and hey, guess what? It comes with an open world, but it's not that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I get what you're saying. So we'll see. I mean, I think when Donkey Kong comes out, I'm gonna have a blast with that. I'll probably enjoy Metroid, but to be honest, I feel like the main reason I knew I was gonna get this was because I know the new Pokemon game is gonna run terribly on the Switch One,
Yeah,
and I know I want to play it.
yeah.
And as dumb of a reason as that is, I
It's not a
knew
dumb
that.
reason.
Look, it's inevitable. I will eventually upgrade because I don't want to play the next Pokemon game at 15
Yeah,
frames per second,
or
right?
at 5 or
Or
whatever it
five or whatever.
is.
So then, in an ironic way, because of how badly optimized I know it's going
Yeah,
to be, I knew I would have to,
yeah.
upgrade. But if Zeta A was actually running pretty well, and I knew, okay, every game is going to run really well, so the only real exclusives
Is
are
Donkey
Donkey
Kong and
Kong
Mario Kart.
and Mario World. No way. I
Yeah,
would
I
I would not
probably wouldn't
upgrade.
either.
I would
I
not
probably
upgrade.
wouldn't either because, yeah, like Donkey Kong looks fun too, but it doesn't look as a big of a game changer as Mario Odyssey was. So, and I'm judging this based on just gameplay, and I haven't touched it myself. So maybe it's going to be a great game, but
Yeah,
as of now, like, yeah, if Pokemon and Metroid ran really well, then yeah, I wouldn't
yeah.
have done it. But just for the sake of that, I know it's going to be a game
Yeah.
changer.
So I guess with me, and I think it's kind of hard to like give a letter grade to like a console release, but to me this is kind of like a B. Like
Yeah, it's a B.
it's not an A. There's things I think they could have done better. Like there's no Breath of the Wild
Yeah,
game that gets me hyped up right away. And there's a lot of questions people are having about price and stuff like
yeah,
that. And
I agree.
so I get that. But at the same time, if I had to make a new Nintendo console, what would I do?
Yeah,
I think the only thing I could potentially do differently, like I would have maybe made the bezels a little better.
yeah.
OLED, if that was going to tank the battery life, I can see why they would make that compromise. So, okay, fine. I probably wouldn't do that. And yeah, I can't think of. Oh, and then I would probably make sure the Joy-Con trigger, the things were not
Hall effect.
Hall effect. I think that's the big thing.
Yeah, I mean, again, and I expect that they release another version with an upgraded battery, maybe OLED, mini OLED,
Better bezels, better
better
battery.
bezel, better battery, and maybe they also have a light version like they did with Switch Lite, and maybe
I
they
feel like that's the move
because
now.
because I'll be honest with you, while the Switch Lite isn't actually that good performance wise, whatever, it doesn't run games well. The thing that they did great about it is the form factor is so small, it almost feels like a 3DS XL,
Right?
but it feels so good in your hand. Like to
Oh yeah.
lay in better in a be in car with such a small unit.
I feel like
I actually
they.
have a hard time not wanting to go back to that.
Yeah, yeah,
So I don't know if they're going to do that with the Switch 2. I don't even know if it's going to be
yeah. I mean,
feasible.
I'm just thinking about like my younger cousins. Like, I can't see them just holding a big chunky.
Yeah, they'll drop it.
They're gonna drop it, especially if they're 8, 9, 10 years old.
Yeah.
Give them a mini, and they'll be good. So, well, all right. I think that pretty much covers Nintendo.
Yeah.
So I guess we could talk to the next big pillar of gaming, Sony. So, sure. What do you think of the new showcase?
Yeah, so there's a
Did
state of
it
play.
did it deliver, bro? Because I know
Um,
the beginning of the year I was a little disappointed. I know you were a little more hyped because of Borderlands 4, but I
yeah.
was. So
I don't want to say it delivered, but there were some interesting announcements here. It was about a 40-minute state of play. There was some interesting. Yeah, now so the Bloodstain, the Scarlet Engagement, a new Bloodstain game, which I thought was interesting.
I know you definitely like that Baby Steps game.
Did not.
I know you're gonna
not
love that Baby
touching
Steps.
that game.
Bro.
It was so bad. God, that game is so ridiculous. But they did have another trailer for Digimon Story Time Changer, which honestly kind of got me hyped again. It looks like they put a lot of effort into the story, like more so than any of the shows I've ever had. And it's been a while, and don't get me wrong, that show is nostalgic to me, but they seem to have put a lot of effort, so I'm very hyped for that. Everybody's Golf Hot Shot, which I think was interesting. They finally announced Final Fantasy Tactics, the Avalanche
I think
Chronicles.
that leaked, didn't it? Or
I mean,
it
from the
didn't
NVIDIA.
exactly leak, but
Well, no, it did. The NVIDIA leaks
Oh, it
from
did.
years ago. So it's been 5 years in the making, I guess, in a sense. Now they're doing something interesting where they're providing the original version of the game and the remastered version. The remastered version has voice acting, which is also interesting. But when I look at the differences, like, yes, is there an upgrade to the remastered version? Clearly, yes. But I thought there was going to be more of an effort
Right?
to upgrade the graphics and maybe
I
redo
mean, do you
rendering.
remember how good like Link's Awakening looked? Right?
Yeah,
Like, could you
like
imagine if you
took
know,
a different approach, maybe like a 3D approach or something, which maybe you could have done a 3D models on
right?
a
I mean, it's just
landscape.
still the game, same
Yeah,
games.
exactly.
But and then if you had like a toggle to switch back and forth, so
Yeah,
purists
that
would
would
still
have
get their
been
want. But hey, I mean, if people haven't been able to play that for a long time and now they are, like, they're going to be very
exactly.
excited about that.
There was a really weird mini teaser for Ghost of Yotai where they basically said we're gonna have more in July with the state
Yeah,
of
what did
play.
you think about that?
I thought that was dumb to even put a teaser in just to remind people of that. Just like when July came, you could have just said a week before, "Hey, we got a 15-minute state of play."
So again, I feel like this is the scenario where, like, I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into the tea leaves, but I feel like Sony was so dominant when it came to, the end of the PS4, beginning of the PS5, that they really could dictate when they were going to announce things, right?
Mhm.
Because they were just releasing banger after banger. And I feel like now, even though they are releasing good games still, it's like it's been slowing down a little bit. And I feel like Sony has to be a little more cautious, and they have to think a little bit more about what their
Yeah.
opponents are doing, right? And like their adversaries, because I feel like they would have probably wanted to wait until July, right?
Yeah, like I just don't. I mean, you also have Death Stranding coming out again within a couple weeks. Like, let that get its shine.
Right?
You don't need to remind people this heavily. Like, they want as many people as possible to be hyped for the game, but you have time. It's coming out in October. Like, I didn't see a need for them to just tease it the way they
Right? And
did.
I don't feel like that's a very Sony move, because I feel
Yeah,
like what Sony does is like what they did with Astrobot, like make your mind completely focused on one
yeah,
game to hype that up, and then the second you're done digesting it, then oh, here's what's coming up next, right? Like the
yeah,
next course in your
yeah,
7 course meal. So I just thought that was a weird kind of move,
yeah. It's
but I
overteased.
guess they felt like they needed to do it. I'm surprised you haven't brought up what I thought you
Well,
would be your game of the
hold
show.
on.
Oh, okay. All right. You're
Chill. There's a
saving
lot
the
of
best for
announcements, bro.
last.
Chill, yeah, chill, dog. So there was 007 First Light, which honestly, when I first saw the trailer for this game, I was not impressed. But then as I've been watching it more and more, I had to watch it like 4 or 5 times. I'm actually kind of hyped now for this game.
Yeah.
Like legitimate. And I hate to say this because I think I've said this multiple times. Anytime I see now like a decent third person shooting game that reminds me of Uncharted, I'm like, oh, it's just Uncharted with
Yeah.
a skin on
You
it.
know, I guess I didn't expect you to say that, but now I feel like it kind of makes sense, because it's probably something to do with the art style and the graphical fidelity,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like it doesn't like just hit you, like pop you, right? Like,
Yeah, it
oh my
doesn't.
god! Especially because Sony has released such amazing looking, like third person games like Returnal or even
Yeah,
Uncharted, right? So I get what you're saying, but I mean, man, it actually I feel like this is the Sony type of game, right? Where like
yeah,
it's right on the border between a movie and a game, right?
yeah.
And I mean, I thought it looked pretty
Yeah, I
good.
do too. It's being made by IO Interactive, the people that made Hitman. It's a 26-year-old Bond, so it's a younger Bond, but he's not right at the beginning of his career. But they made him that age to make him more relatable to gamers. I think that
Have we? I don't know if we've had a Bond that young
no,
before.
I don't think we have, and I don't even know if in the books he's that young. Like I'll be honest with you, or the novelizations or the older movies.
Yeah.
So again, I'm actually cautiously optimistic about this. The developers doing it are really good at what they do. So, and again, the art style is interesting, but it didn't feel like it had its own flair or pop, but the gameplay looked
Yeah. Yeah.
good. So, hype there a
Yeah. I
little
mean, I
bit.
think that team has done pretty good work with Hitman. I think they're going to deliver.
Yeah, I think they're going to deliver. Marvel Token Fighting Soul. So this one was funny as
So
hell.
this is what I thought you were going to start off talking about. I'm surprised that you had the patience, because
Yeah.
I thought this would do it for you, bro.
Yeah, now this definitely did when they announced it. Now I kind of got confused because I missed the first couple seconds. I didn't realize it said Arc Systems, and so honestly, when I saw, I'm like, "Is this Marvel vs. Capcom 4?"
That's what I was
I'm
thinking.
like, "There's no way." But this makes sense that Sony's funding it, so it looks like it's a second party studio collaboration because they're funding the game.
What did they make before? They made Dragon Ball.
Yes, Dragon Ball Fighters.
Okay.
And they made Guilty Gear. I want to say a Guilty Gear fighting game. Both were great. I love Dragon Ball Fighters. That game has sold over 5 million copies for
Nice,
sure, and
yeah.
maybe close to 10
It's
million.
very good for a Dragon Ball game.
And the Guilty Gear game sold really well. I think it's either Guilty Gear or I'm mixing that up with a different one. But they made another one after Dragon Ball Fighters. Both were great, technically. This looks good. You can tell it's in the early stages. The one unique portion of this game is that it's going to be 4v4, but it's not your traditional, like, all four characters have to die. They're allowing you some freedom. So you could technically, one character could die and you could lose the whole battle, and the three can act as assists, or you can just swap in with all four. So it's interesting. You only have really one health bar. So they're making a unique twist on the tag team genre a bit,
Yeah.
more so than the other games. And on top of it, I just love the art style.
I
Like,
love the art style, dude. The
dude,
Iron Man looks so
Iron
cool.
Man looks like a Gundam.
Iron Man looks so sick,
And there's
bro.
been so many memes online of people just like modifying the gameplay to, like, I don't know. It's just been funny seeing people modify these clips. But I think overall this makes sense because didn't Sony buy what's the thing that's hosted, the event that's hosted every year for
Oh, they
fighting?
did. Yeah, yeah. I forgot the
Um,
name of it, but they did buy that a while back.
yeah, what's it called? Not
I don't remember.
So the event that's held every year for fighting games that Sony ultimately purchased out a couple years ago, I think they're now doing this to now have to basically promote it. They saw an opportunity and now they're working with a great developer. Honestly, like, I think this was just a great move on their part. They're so smart. Arc Systems is so good, and the fact that again they're getting that funding and to use the Marvel IP, they actually kind of showed off, or they had a little commentary. And the funny thing was, Arc Systems was like, "Hey, Sony approached us about potentially using the Marvel IP, and we were so scared because that's such a precious, set of IP that we didn't want to mess this up." And then when they thought about it, they're like, "Yeah, we think we can get this done." And I'm glad that they showed off some of these characters like
Yeah.
Doom, Spider Man, Captain America, Ghost
Honestly,
Rider, Storm.
this release floored me. Like I did not expect this at all.
Yeah,
You know,
and
I think this was a massive W for Sony. I do hate the fact that Sony like
Evo.
leans Evo. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do hate the fact that Sony leans into things that are definitely going to give people FOMO, right? Because
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
Marvel
100%.
is so important right now
Yeah,
that you make a game like this, and anyone who doesn't have a PlayStation is going to feel some FOMO.
yeah.
Like I don't even like fighting games, and I felt FOMO, for my Xbox buddies and my Nintendo buddies. So
Well, think about this. They didn't go to Arc System and say, "Can you make a fighting game based on our Sony IP?"
yeah, they
They
specifically use
said
Marvel.
they specifically said, "Think about Marvel."
Yeah.
And so it was crazy because they know that in Evo, like, the biggest games have been Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and 3 and Infinite, uh, Mortal Kombat, and like a couple other ones. So
Yeah.
they were pretty strategic about this. I think the interesting part about this too is that okay, I was about to say something and I completely
That's
forgot.
okay. So
Yeah.
I think for me, like this is such a massive W, and I feel like this and Helldivers for me have been such massive W's for them because it fills a specific niche in their catalog that they just do not have, right?
Yeah.
Like, Helldivers, now you're having like the one live service that actually worked, but more importantly, you're having a shooter, right? Like
Yeah.
we don't have cooperative shooters. And how long has it been since there's been just a banger fighting game that everyone's talking
Yeah.
about that's linked to a console? Like, yeah, Street Fighter. I mean, maybe Street Fighter Five, right? Like, wasn't
Yeah.
that exclusive, right? And so,
5 was, but then it came out in a horrible state at first
yeah,
until they fixed
and,
it.
and
Yeah.
so I just feel like the time is right. It's been a little while since I feel like and someone was talking about a new fighting game because probably Dragon Ball Fighters was the last
Yeah.
one. Well, no, didn't one just Tekken came out last
Sorry,
year, right?
Tekken.
Yeah,
That was
but
been
but
doing
still,
well.
that's going to be a year and a half at least, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, I think two things. One is Arc System has always created these fighting games really balanced. So when I play Dragon Ball Fighters, even though you could be very good and it could be very complex, it was easy for beginners to get into it. So I think if they play it smart, they're going to be able to get a ton of people to get into the game. It's going to sell well, and then you can master the game too. It doesn't have to be super complex from the get go, and their Arc Systems is great at that. So I just think that's a thing there.
Yeah.
And on top of it, they announced a fighting stick. So Sony has
Yeah.
now announced a new wireless.
they're getting
fighting
into
stick.
it, man. They're
Yeah.
getting into it. So good for them. So I thought that was a pretty big one.
They announced another trailer for Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater, which is out in August. Now, Konami just announced another showcase on June 12th for a 40-minute thing. They're going to show off more Delta Eater, or Snake Eater, and they're going to show off Silent Hill and a couple other surprise announcements.
Okay, so it's kind of like spacing out E3 a little
Yeah.
bit.
Well, I'll say this trailer didn't do a whole lot for me, but I'm already excited for this game. I am very hyped to play this.
I feel like the people who are going to buy this have already decided they're going to buy it. You know,
100%.
so
There's not much more they need to do. Now, they did tease that there's going to be some more multiplayer coming back to this game for both Xbox and PlayStation. I'm kind of shocked that if they introduced PvP in this, I haven't played Metal Gear PvP since Metal Gear Solid 4 on the PS3, and that was amazing.
Yeah, man, I don't even
So
remember what that was like.
it
So it's
was
been so
so
long.
good. So if they bring back a full PvP or multiplayer suite, I'm actually gonna play it.
Yeah, I guess I just haven't been the biggest Metal Gear fan. So, and maybe this is just for whatever reason I'm not the biggest Hideo
Hater,
Kojima fan.
hater,
So,
hater.
I don't think I'm gonna play it. But we'll see. I could. My mind could change when the game comes out, depending on the reviews. But probably I'm gonna skip that one out.
Hater
I
alert.
can't pay everything, Arjun.
So another interesting one. This was interesting. Was Mortal Kombat Collection. They're basically, they've done this a couple times in the last two generations, but they're bringing back a lot of the original Mortal Kombat games, like three Ultimate, and two and one. And this time they're bringing back Mortal Kombat 4, which has been abandoned since like forever, and you can't play that on only on like the old consoles and emulation. And on top of it, what was really interesting about this video and saying we're bringing this stuff back is that they got Tobias, the co-creator of Mortal Kombat. So it's been pretty well known that Ed Boon and Tobias have like gone their separate ways in the last decade, and they just were not on good terms. And in this video, they show him come in at the last minute or last 30 seconds, and they're collaborating together to get this huge legacy collection out. So I was like, wow, okay, I guess they settled maybe some of their differences. So that was cool to
I mean,
see.
it's probably been decades at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while. But it's just interesting because like you can have so much beef with someone and then decades later be like, all right, let's put this shit aside and
Yeah.
really
I
figure it
mean, I
out.
kind of like this one-two punch that all these companies are doing, where it's like, okay, let's bring back what's retro, and then also like move forward with the console, right?
Yeah.
Like, or move forward with this brand. So
Yeah, and I've played so many. I've played the old Mortal Kombat games so many times, but seeing this probably be a more comprehensive set on the current gen, I'm definitely going to get this. This was my childhood with my sister. I played all the old ones all the time, and I kind of do miss it. And
I mean, that's why you're
honestly,
so freaking good at Mortal Kombat. I
yeah,
remember first time I played you, and I was like, man, screw this guy.
dude, yeah, people get so upset with me. They don't want to play ever with me, so it's kind of annoying. But what I will say is this: is I didn't like Mortal Kombat One, the one that recently came out, and I kind of have. I'm feeling nostalgic to play the old stuff.
What didn't you like about Mortal Kombat One?
Honestly, the whole multiversal thing, it's getting so overdone.
Complicated.
Not even common, it's just overdone. And I feel like with Mortal Kombat, like one, they just redid the story. It's like we've seen this story before, so
Yeah.
you redoing it makes no sense to me. And I'll say this that I think Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection might have online multiplayer. I can't remember if they announced that. So if they do, that'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm with you. I mean, I feel like Marvel got everyone interested in multiversal stuff, and then a few years later made the audience hate multiversal
Yeah.
stuff. So anyone who decided to jump on that got burned.
Yeah.
Because now everyone is done.
It was a fad, okay? And the only way to like you can only make so many sequels to a game and then be like, how do we restart? Oh, let's reboot.
Right. Oh, man.
Let's build it into the story and
Too
call
many.
it multiverse. So, there's 5 other universes out there that
Yeah,
are
I
going
hate
to.
that.
It's like, dude, it does not matter. But that's to me, it's somewhat lazy writing, in my opinion. You can do it right,
Yeah.
but kind of lazy. It's a cop out. So they also announced what I was shocked about, Neo 3.
I did not expect that because that's Team Ninja, right?
Yeah. Yes, Team Ninja. Yeah.
Man, how many games are these guys making? I love how, and I guess this is something we're going to talk later. You watch the Xbox showcase, you see Team Ninja. You watch the Sony showcase, you see Team Ninja. So, but man, like I did not expect that game at all.
Yeah, so they announced. I remember as I was watching this, is there's gonna be two playing styles now. You can switch between a ninja playing style and a samurai playing style. So it looked unique when they were showing gameplay, but it didn't look as good as I thought. It looked clunky when you were switching between both of the fighting styles. But you know what? The Neo 1 and 2 combined have sold over 10 million units. So this has been actually pretty big for Team Ninja.
I think it's going to be a big hit for them.
Yeah. Now, what I will say is, again, those games were somewhat released during the pandemic. So I hate to say this. I don't think this game is going to sell as well. Well,
the thing is, the genre has really evolved too, right?
Yeah.
Like with Elden Ring, and then now Lies of P and the expansion of Lies of P.
What's the other game from Software? The Ninja Samurai game or whatever?
Oh, Sekiro.
Sekiro.
Yeah. So it's definitely evolved a bit. So I don't know.
Saturated to some degree.
And then there was that Wulong game that came out that kind of had a certain similar vibe. So I think this is big for Sony because a lot of people have been clamoring for something,
Well, yeah.
And so Neo 3 is gonna deliver for a lot of people. But
it's always been a difficult game too.
Yeah.
But I will say this, like the fact that Team Ninja is doing this is because we already know they have another game in the works, and we'll talk about that later. But the thing is, this one did not announce that they have a collaboration with any other developer.
Yeah,
So
just them.
it's just them. So they're spread thin, or I don't know how they're getting
So
this
I mean,
done.
I think probably the majority of their studios working on Neo 3, and I feel like for Ninja Gaiden, I think it's probably really Platinum. Like I feel like
Yeah,
Platinum is
Platinum's
doing a
really
lot of
doing the
that.
work.
So
Which kind of, not to say it's disappointing, is like I hope Ninja Gaiden has a good story. Then I hope it's not a basic ass story.
yeah.
That's I'm scared. I'm cautious there.
So I guess one other thing I want to say about Neo, and I don't know if this is going to brand me as a hater. I'm not trying to piss off the people who love
Hater
Neo,
alert.
but if I didn't see the sign for Neo 3, if they
Oh yeah,
just
it's
threw
not
the name,
recognizable. Yeah.
if they just threw the name of some random,
Yeah.
new studio making some random game, I'd be like, all right, whatever. This is a dime a dozen.
You know,
And it was because I saw Neo 3, I was like, all right, here we go. Now I'm getting excited.
Okay, it's not to say that like you're hating. What's funny is that in the last several years, there have been Neo-like games coming out from indie studios. What's the Wukong? Now Wu Chang is coming out. All these games that legit look the same.
So again, it's not me totally just hating on Neo and Team Ninja. It's just
you're definitely not racist. Yeah.
I mean, I love their games.
Kidding,
So how much did I love Ninja Gaiden 2?
I'm kidding.
But yeah, man, it just the trailer alone didn't do it for me. But I know this game is gonna deliver. Like I know people will be happy with it.
I know I'm not gonna. So I was very excited when Neo 1 and 2 came out, and I tried it. It was too difficult for me. Like I'm just not that good when it comes to these action games, and I'm not gonna. Even
I played Neo, and normally I like games like that. I just, for whatever reason, I couldn't get into Neo, and I think I was just still too much in my Bloodborne nostalgia.
Probably.
And I just really
wanted. It's a different type of speed.
I just wanted Bloodborne.
And that too.
For a long time, even when I was playing Dark Souls, even when I got into Elden Ring, I was like, man, I just want Bloodborne.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
it.
I can understand that. What I will say is that game, like those games, are a different type of speed, and with Neo too. Again, difficult enough. I like the fact that like Liza P is going to adjust its difficulty, and if Neo 3 said we're going to have difficulty levels and stuff, I would consider it. But any of these things that don't, they're already adjusted to be very complex and hard.
Yeah.
I don't want to be frustrated when I play games.
Well, you need to play Liza P. Now that they have the difficulty slider, because I feel like in a game like that, you really need dedication, right? And it almost becomes like a second job. Because if you step away from that game for a little bit, your skills get a little rusty, and it's so frustrating to get back into it.
Just like Returnal was.
You have to blast through the game.
Yeah, just like how people I remember listening to a lot of people that played Returnal. That it's a frenetic shooter. You have to be pretty good at it. But if you took a break for a month or a couple weeks, it was very hard to get back into it. You're never gonna.
I mean, that's what happened to me. Like I stopped playing for a while, and then I just didn't want to play. And then one day I was just really bored.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I feel like Returnal's talking some shit to me because I couldn't beat it. So then I got back into it, and I beat it over the weekend.
That's funny.
So okay, and I guess we can move on to the next game.
Yeah, Pragmata. Pragmata, whatever. Interesting announcement to come here all of a sudden. They did announce a 2026 release date. I thought it was hilarious that they showed that little image at the end said 2022 crossed out 2023 crossed out. Oh, this is real 2026.
I thought that was funny.
I thought that was hilarious. Now the little girl has even more detail to her. So if you compare her to the trailer from 2023, oh my god, the hair looks way better.
I was shocked by how good this game looked.
Yeah, and dude, to me, this game legit reminds me of Dead Space with the bodysuit and whatnot. And the gameplay looks interesting. Like it looks slow, methodical, but you can hack, you can slow down these robots and stuff. And honestly, it looked so beautiful. I was just like astounded when I saw the Dead Space remake. I was like, wow, they did a great job. This kind of gave me that same feeling. Like the story doesn't look super crazy interesting, but the fact that it looks amazing, I'm like, it has my attention. Yeah,
I get what you're saying. I think I had a lot of mixed feelings about Pragmata. This has always been a game where I've just been like, what in the world is this about and what is going on? Like some games will just sell you on the premise right away.
Right.
And you're like, oh my God, that's so badass. I need to play it. But Pragmata has been more mysterious to me. Honestly, if Capcom, because this is a Capcom game.
Yes.
So if Capcom was not on, just the tear of games it was.
Yeah, I'd be like, no.
I would probably be not interested in this game. But I think because of how good their games have been lately, I'm like, all right, I'm interested. I'm curious. The quality control is pretty good. Because I just don't understand or know the game well enough. And again, I think this is a game that's suffering from like the dime a dozen, right? Where there's so many new studios that are popping up, especially in Korea and China, that are making games that kind of feel like this, right?
Right.
Like, what was that? Was it the First Descendant or whatever? A lot of games that kind of have this like,
Yeah.
futuristic, third person type of look. So, but that one is a game that I'm actually very curious about. I want to see how that plays out. I want to see, what an extended deep dive looks like. So that's definitely on my radar. But I would have thought that this game would be an exclusive, but it's not. It's on
It's not.
Xbox too. Yeah.
Oh,
So
I
a
mean,
lot of these games, other than Neo, Token, a lot of these games are multi-platform.
honestly, I would have been kind of not hyped, more hyped, but I think this would have been a good get for
I think
Sony.
so. The thing about Sony is like they're kind of curators, right? So when they decide to make a game like a second party, platform exclusive, it's like they're putting their stamp of quality control, right?
Yeah.
And so then they're like, okay, our name is on the line. We have to make sure like this game actually
Yeah.
delivers. Like it's not often that like a Sony stamped game will have an open critic score in the low 70s, right?
Yeah.
Like
No
you're pretty much
man.
going to get a 77 and above,
Yeah.
right? So, and I would think they would jump on something like this, but I guess
Well,
not.
it's probably a Capcom thing that now, if you're investing in a new IP that's taken you so many years to get out the door, and again, it's still not out yet, they want it on as many platforms as possible. And it's a new IP. So it's not like it's Final Fantasy and, hey, we're going to gatekeep this to Sony because we've been
Oh
associated
yeah,
for two
you
decades.
can really start that association anywhere.
Yeah, they want to make their money and their ROI. They want to get their return on it. Now, what I find interesting about this game is the director of Pragmata is Young-hee Cho, which, if those of you don't know, he's a he used to work on Near Automata, Metal Gear Rising or Revengeance, and the Resident Evil 3 remake. So he's actually well known for the last decade to have worked on really prominent games. I actually love Near Automata. I heard a lot of their cult following for Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, and Resident Evil 3 remake is not bad at all. So I actually am kind of hyped that they got someone pretty good
Yeah.
now. It's not a nobody. It's just like they have
So
someone really well known working
yeah,
on it.
so I think that one could be, pretty promising. I think another game I wanted to talk about that I thought looked pretty promising was Romeo is
Yeah,
Dead.
Romeo is a Dead Man. This game is interesting because it's being made by, isn't it Suda?
Suda, yeah.
So yeah, so the guy who made No More Heroes, which have always been unique games, that honestly I got that same feel
Oh yeah.
in this trailer. It looked,
I didn't realize this was No More Heroes, but the second you said it, I was like, oh, it just clicked. I was like,
yeah,
oh yeah, yeah, it's the
yeah.
same guy.
When I saw the trailer, I was like, the camera angles, I legit thought No More Heroes. And then what I found interesting is this gameplay looked so good. Like,
Yeah.
legitimately caught my attention in such a unique way.
It's such a mishmash of stuff. Like at some point, I was kind of getting Dead Rising,
Yes,
vibes.
yeah, and Dead Rising vibes.
And then I love the way they started because I thought as soon as I was watching, I was like, oh, it's just another one of those indie games that like for whatever reason Microsoft and Sony always pull off, and
Yeah.
they're like more like movie TV shows or
Yeah.
something like that. And all of a sudden, like the guy is dying,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, wait, what in the world is going on?
Well, I think it's funny because it definitely still clearly looks like a double A game, and by that I mean like his budget will always be limited. Like he's not going to have this huge budget to make these crazy open world or like big games.
Yeah.
But it looked big enough that it looked bigger in scope compared to his previous games.
Yeah.
So what I was happy about was that he was finally making a ground up game for PlayStation that looked high quality and that could almost teeter between double and triple A.
Yeah.
His No More Hero games, guys, I love them, but they've not been like
Yeah.
the best quality.
So like for me, this kind of made me think of like the older Yakuza games in
Yeah.
terms of scale and scope, right? Like the newer ones are definitely like bigger and bigger, like the Hawaii one,
Yeah.
that seemed pretty grand. But
Yeah.
some of the older ones that are really cult classics, right? Like it kind of had that kind of niche vibe. So that's on my radar. Again, that's a game that as soon as this was done, I wanted to see what other platform it's coming out on, and it's on the Xbox too.
No
So,
surprise. No
and,
surprise
and
there.
to me, like the fact that Pragmata and Romeo are both on the Xbox were kind of big deals because those were the two games that I was really interested in and surprised about and wanted to know more. So
yeah, I mean, again, this game is coming out next year, is what they're saying. Hopefully, there's no delays. But I just love the name Romeo is a Dead Man. Like, and
Yeah.
like the artwork for it, it looks so cool. I just really like that. Now, there was some more for Silent Hill Alpha, and I just announced, or I just said earlier that there's going to be a separate broadcast in a couple days, but not too excited about this, honestly.
Yeah, I'm not a Silent Hill guy.
Yeah, I didn't play the Silent Hill 2 remake, and this is being made by a separate team. It's not being made by the Bloober team. To me, this didn't get me excited in any way.
I don't know if there was much more from the showcase that really got me excited.
Yeah, that's really about it. So
what would you grade this one?
I mean, I'd give this also like a solid B.
Yeah.
I think there were some unique announcements that really just spoke to me, and I think were probably big enough for other people to recognize that this like felt like the start of an E3 season again. And I think it was a good time to release this or do this. But I'd give it a solid B.
Yeah, I'd give this a B minus. Honestly, I was debating C plus, but I think the Marvel token game was just such a big surprise and big get that I'd give it a B minus. If you included like Ghost of Yotai in here, then it would feel like a bigger game.
Yeah.
But the thing is, a lot of we really didn't see much from Sony first party at all, right?
Right.
A lot of the interesting third party games were multi platform, and for Sony, I think it matters when a game is multi-platform because their whole strategy is first party for the most part, right? And console sellers. So that's why I think it's important to bring that up. And I don't know. It just even the games that I thought would like really hit hard, like Neo 3, just didn't hit as hard as they maybe would have a few years ago. I just feel like those kind of that those Souls-like game have really changed after Elden Ring has come out, right? So yeah, I'd give it a B minus. It was a lot better than anticipated, honestly.
Yeah,
and
I didn't have my hopes up, but like it was good.
And I think again, maybe I'll sound like kind of a fanboy, but I think if I saw this in isolation, I'd probably give it a B plus. But when I look at what Nintendo's doing and when I look at what Xbox is doing, like it kind of doesn't seem as much of a big deal, right?
Sure. I mean, there's rumors that there'll be another Nintendo Direct soon, but I think Sony is being consistent in their level of delivering announcements in the last year or two.
The thing is, even though Sony has, in my opinion, really been struggling this generation, they're still doing very well because they're still pretty much always consistently giving us two very good games a year, right?
Which is like I can't complain.
Somehow they're still pulling that off year after year after year. And this year we're going to have Death Stranding, we're going to have Ghost of Yotai, right? Yeah. And so somehow they always deliver one in the first 6 months, one in the second 6 months.
Yeah. I'll say this too. We still know, based on the state of play from earlier this year when they announced Saros, that they're going to show gameplay later in the year. This tells me there's going to be either another big state of play or potentially, hopefully, a showcase. We haven't had a showcase in a couple years now. So it's like, come on, Sony, let me see what all the first
I don't even remember the last showcase. It's like hard for me to keep track of what's a state of play and what's a showcase.
It'll say specifically Sony showcase. Now, the thing is, it's all basically first-party games. Now, the thing is, there was rumors that a God of War game was going to be showcased during the state of play. It didn't happen. It's supposedly a 2D or a 2.5D game coming out this fall, smaller in scope, but we didn't see that. So could only assume that maybe in the fall we might actually get another state of play, and it might be could be the God of War game, could be Saros gameplay, could be. And again, this is what worries me, is that in this state of play, they did not show anything Wolverine related. Yeah. It's been 5 years.
What is going on with
At this point, I'm telling you that project is in trouble.
Didn't their creative director go over to the initiative?
Yeah, they just left not too long ago, like a year and a half. And yes, okay, did Insomniac get hacked and a lot of shit was leaked? And maybe the prototype looked decent. I'm telling you, this game is definitely in trouble. I don't want to say development hell. I'm just saying I'm very worried.
I think Insomniac is good enough that like I trust them, right? Yeah. And I know they'll push through it. And I don't think Sony is gonna really be, breathing down their throat that much. But Insomniac, in spite of how well they sell, it's not like they're sitting on $1 billion, right? Because everything costs so much to make in California.
Yeah.
So it's not like they have an unlimited amount of time either, right? So I don't think they're going to ever cancel Wolverine. I'm like pretty confident that absolutely it's going to come out.
I am too, but I think what they did, and I think this is where they might have shot themselves a bit in the foot based on the leaks. They put all their eggs basically in one basket. They're not going to probably do a new Ratchet and Clank game. And they basically know that after Wolverine, they're going to do 2 more sequels to it, and it's going to be an X-Men game. So if they basically can't cancel this, and they also know they have to pay up the wazoo for the licensing to Disney. So this has to go well. They have to release it. They then have to create a sequel that could take years, and then it's a full-fledged X-Men game.
And I don't see this game like releasing on the PS6, right? Like you need a good install base, right? So I feel like this is probably
2 years out,
2027 game. I would have been very confident in 2026, but I don't know with the Sony pipeline anymore.
If they're not showing it now and in at least a 2-minute trailer, it's not coming next year, in my opinion.
Unless they do an Astrobot, you never know with Sony. You never know. But
like I'll say this: when Spider-Man 2 just came out, they advertised it the year it came out. So they announced it the year or 2 prior. And then they said, hey, 2023. All of a
That's
sudden,
true.
they started advertising. We're like, wait, where did all these advertisements come from? So maybe 2026, they all of a sudden next year in January go, oh, and here's Wolverine. So maybe, but I'm just worried about it. So
Yeah. So, and who knows when? To me, the big three are Gorilla, Naughty Dog, and Sony Santa Monica. So who
yeah.
knows when we're going to get anything new from them? And honestly, those are the three studios I'm really waiting
Yeah,
on.
I honestly, I'd be very disappointed if Sony Santa Monica's next game is a 2.5D God of War
I
game.
mean, maybe like kind of a small thing that like 30 of the developers made,
Yeah,
but
maybe,
no,
but
they definitely have to have something bigger cooking. I don't think Intergalactic's going to come out until 2027,
yeah,
right? And I think Sony's going to stretch out this console as well because they're not going to see a big need to jump to a PS6, right? Especially if they're still outselling their competition, right?
yeah,
So I think they're going to drag this out. I wouldn't be surprised if they even pushed all the way to 2028 and made it like
maybe,
a, what that's like an 8 year cycle, right?
yeah.
Just like the Switch. I can see them do
I could
that.
see it. Yeah, and I wouldn't be upset by it. The games are already good. I don't need better looking games. I just want the games they've announced to come out, and I want the games they haven't announced that they're cooking, like you said for Sony Santa Monica and Gorilla, to be shown off. I just want to
Yeah,
see.
and
You know,
especially if like Grand Theft Auto is going to come out in 2026. If Sony was going to release a new console in 2027 and the best selling game, theoretically is coming out right at the basically the tail end, I just don't see that happening, right?
yeah,
Because what's the need? Like you're going to sell an insane amount of PS5s and
yeah,
PS5 Pros, and yeah, the Pro is what 1 year old, right?
yeah,
So then that makes it a 3 year life cycle. So I'm thinking 2028, man. So I
yeah,
think I think Wolverine, I think Intergalactic, I think these are going to be like the bangers you see at the end of the generation, right?
yeah,
Like just like we saw with the PS4, like you just got like hit after hit after hit, like
yeah.
right in the last year.
Yeah, I agree with that. Again, I don't think it's a problem. Give them more time. Now, do you have the money to burn through? You've been burned by
I,
so many different live service initiatives that if you're just trying to save money at this point, you either have to pump it out or you have to continue to give them time.
I think what
That's
they're gonna do is just keep finding these like diamonds in the rough, like kind of how I mean, I don't really like Stellar Blade that much, but I can objectively say it's like a diamond in the rough, right? Like it
diamond
sold
in the
very
rough.
well, people liked it, it reviewed well, and so they're gonna keep finding things like that to keep their player base, happy and engaged, and then eventually all those things are really gonna hit later. So I feel like that's kind of the state of where Sony's at, and I guess I don't know if you want to talk about Xbox next, but after the Xbox showcase, I did feel pretty hyped as an Xbox fanboy, and I think as someone who has been repping Xbox for a while, like it was kind of cathartic for me just seeing how many games are coming out on Xbox, especially since I remember how many years I've been seeing comments of people just saying Xbox has no games. But honestly, I left just really wanting more first party PlayStation games. Like I
Yeah.
really missed that.
Yeah, I do too. I want to talk about one game before we get into the Xbox showcase. I mean, it's not part of any of these three, but it was right about the same time. Unreal had their own showcase to show off a game specifically utilizing their new engine and how they've kind of enhanced their engine, and that was Witcher 4. There was a tech demo for that.
Jeez, I forgot that we haven't even had a chance to talk about
Yeah,
this. There's been so much
yeah,
stuff
there's
in
been a
these last
lot.
2 weeks.
Now, again, what CD Projekt Red said was this tech demo was running on a base PS5, but that's what it is. It's a tech demo. So will all of this that they showed off make it into the final cut of the game? And how many users are we still off? I don't know. But what I was happy about was I was impressed by the work they were showing off. Like legitimately, I don't think the game will look like that when it comes
No,
out. But it's the fact that they're working on Unreal Engine 5 and then pushing that and they're trying to help Epic saying, hey, we want to make enhancements to your
I loved
engine.
what they did with Nanite when it came to the
Yeah,
trees. I was like, oh my god,
dude,
this is why
it looked.
Unreal is so sick because if every developer adds to it
Yeah,
along the way as they're making their game, oh my god,
yeah,
that's
it's
insane. Now everyone can benefit from Nanite
yes,
trees.
exactly. So now that whatever they end up implementing, everyone else can use, and it's hey man, that's the more the merrier. Like if you're willing to help out, enhance their engine and let everyone else use it, that's great. Sharing that knowledge. So I think Witcher 4. I'm excited that we got to see something so early. I know a lot of people have been complaining about how Siri looks like. I don't think I had any
It-
problem with
you know,
it. It
sometimes
looked
I feel
perfectly
like
fucking fine.
in the internet, like there's these fringes that I don't know if it's like motivated by like political beliefs or what, but they just like latch onto something and then just go crazy about it.
Yeah,
And especially with The Witcher, it does not make sense,
yeah,
right? Because it's not like anyone is trying to push an agenda. Like, have you read the books? Like, have you actually listened to the interviews of the writer who is still alive,
yeah.
who is still writing? Right, like Siri is such a pivotal character. If the actual writer who is still living, unlike J.R. Tolkien, right, like
Yeah,
if he had a problem with
he
it,
would
he
probably say
would
it.
say something,
Yeah,
right?
he'd probably
Like,
say
but
it.
no, because Siri is like one of the most. She's basically as important, if not more
Yeah,
important, than Gerald, right?
which is
Um,
why they're continuing the like. I never thought they would do a sequel to three, but they also realize and they go like, we're starting a whole new. I don't know, like a
yeah,
trilogy with Siri. I think maybe they
I
said
think so.
that.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, am I sad that I'm not playing as Gerald? Like, of course.
Yeah,
You know, like I'm like the biggest Halo fanboy, and Witcher Three was the first game that made me think, oh my god, is there a game out there that I like more than Halo? Like that's how much I loved Witcher,
yeah.
and so
I mean, you
obviously.
even have a Witcher 3 Xbox controller,
Yeah, I wonder
right?
how I got that. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it was just my birthday. And, you know, my boy Arjun hooked me up with the Doom controller and the Witcher 3 controller.
Let's go!
And that Witcher 3 controller is pretty sick.
LFG!
Pretty sick. I mean, I have like a Witcher 3 display in my office. I think, you know, on my phone, I used to have like one screensaver was my wedding photo, and the next was an anime picture of the Witcher 3, and he's like, you know, beating up a wolf, a bear. So I say all that because I have a lot of mixed feelings about
And
like,
we're going to a Witcher 3 orchestra,
oh
right?
yeah, Witcher Three Orchestra. That's gonna be dope, you know.
Yeah.
So if anyone's out there in August, you know, come say hi.
We're not telling where we live, but you know what I'm saying.
You know, you'll tell by our voices.
Yeah.
But no, I have a lot of mixed feelings about Witcher 4 because a part of me was like, okay, do they really need to resurrect this and destroy it, you know, and ruin it? And then, you know, of course, I want to, you know, Gerald, like he's such a badass. You know, I'd love to, you know, play as him more. So when I was like, oh, it's just Siri, I was like, I don't know, right? But honestly, I feel like that is the logical place for the
Yes, the
story to
logical
go,
place
right?
for the
Like,
story.
and there's actually meat there. There's actually things that you can, you know,
Yeah.
explore when you're the writer. The fact, I mean, it's not like the other characters of The Witcher have just magically disappeared,
Yeah.
right? Now you're basically going to be able to see the story through another perspective, right?
Yeah.
And so that's going to be
I
fascinating.
well, so I think okay, not only is it seeing another perspective for the story or through another perspective. Look, we also know CD Projekt Red is very talented. If there was any studio out there that has said that I could say, I want this studio to continue making a game every 5 to 7 years because I know that they're gonna completely enhance. It's like Rockstar. Every single time they release a game, it's a generational leap from their previous
Well,
game.
I don't know, man. I still remember Cyber 2077
No,
77.
but I'm talking
the
about
first one.
specifically about Witcher. So
Yeah.
if you
Oh
look
yeah.
at it technologically speaking, when Witcher One came out, and I looked at gameplay, and then Witcher Two came out, it was such a big jump, and then Witcher Two to Three was such a
It's
big
insane, yeah.
jump, and now Three to Four. It's like again, I understand if someone even said to me, "There's not that much story to tell," right? And I said, "Okay, but you know what? I still get to play a game that's phenomenally changed since the prior one."
And the thing that was really fascinating about that presentation, like, you know, obviously I'm not super techie, I'm not an engineer, but the way they were able to present, you know, the technology they're using and why
Yeah,
it matters, I was like, oh my God, like that is a great place to go with the technology,
yeah,
right? And so just like, you know, when you play Witcher 3 and you realize how dense the side missions are, you're like, oh my God, why don't all, you know, video games have this, right?
yeah,
And then everyone now has it, right?
yeah.
And so then when I thought about like, you know, that reactivity that the world has on its own, even when you're not around, that just brings so much more life into the game, right? And I was just
Yeah.
like, damn,
But
that's good.
that's why I'm saying that they're gonna push the boundaries of gaming yet again, and it's probably gonna come out. What I think Witcher 3 came out 2015, so by the time this comes out, it'll have been 12 or 13 or
Yeah.
14 years. They will have pushed the
I
boundaries
think
yet
it's a
again.
2027 game.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I think early 2027, I think Grand Theft Auto is going to own next year, and then Witcher is going to own 2027.
Yeah,
And
and I'm fine
I'm
with that.
super looking forward to that.
Well, I'll say this too again. Look at the way they presented the changes, and just tell me that you're not excited for this. Like again, they barely showed off anything.
Yeah. I think people were also like hating on Siri and what her face looked like. And, you know, in an ironic way, I feel like they were trying to be too one to one with Witcher 3,
Yeah.
and it kind of backfired because Some of the characters in Witcher 3 do not look that great, right?
Well,
And I don't think that Ciri was a great looking character, right?
yeah, not great, but
Just like, I'm not saying she's ugly, but I'm just saying like the way like it was animated, right? Like it was a little blockier, like compared to, when you look at like the Last of Us characters and things like that, right? Like, Witcher is an old game, right? But as far as I can tell, like this, what the studio was saying is they basically took the model from Witcher 3, right? And then they just try to spruce it
yeah,
up. And so to me, like maybe it feels a little uncanny, right?
yeah,
Because it's like when you take like an older game and you take the model and you try and like remaster it, but then
right.
it feels kind of uncanny.
You can kind of tell.
You can kind
You
of
can,
tell
you
it
can, you
looks
feel,
a little
it feels
weird.
like there's like a sticker wrapped around the old model, and it's
so
just like
so I feel like I got a little bit about that, but honestly,
I was perfectly
that
fine with
passed
it.
away. Like, and maybe that's just like my nostalgia. Like I'm just so used to Witcher 3 that when I see Witcher 4, just like
Well,
it
this
was
is
a little jarring for me. Maybe someone who's never played Witcher would just be like, bro, like, have you met a woman before? What is wrong with you? But yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it's a non-problem.
That's funny too, because when Witcher 3 came out originally, I was like, wow, this game looks so phenomenal. I was like so shocked and impressed, and now I go back to it, I'm like, it doesn't
Is that
look
insane? Isn't that insane
yeah,
how
and
these things work?
and I'm like, what the? And then now I see with this Witcher 4 tech demo again. I'm not saying this is how it's gonna look. But I'm like, holy
dude,
hell.
if this game looks like 80% as good as that,
yeah,
I'm gonna be so happy. And that's on a PS5. That's not even on the PS5 Pro.
Yeah,
it's not even on a PC, dude.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be dope. And honestly, like if it's a tech demo, like does that mean that yes, the consoles will be degraded, but the PC is still gonna look that good,
maybe,
right? And maybe even by that point we'll have 6090s.
Yeah,
right? 2 years out, right? So
yeah.
So I thought that was. I'm happy you brought that up. I totally forgot about that because of all the news that's been coming out.
Yeah.
So I guess we should also talk about Summer Game Fest, right? Before we get to Xbox, and maybe we can talk about how little there is to talk about on Summer Game Fest.
Look, Summer Game Fest now isn't really treated like the TGAs, the Game Awards, which is every end of year, and I think Jeff specifically saves big announcements for the end of the year show. So he knows this is kind of fluff, but every year he gets like one or two decent announcements. So just to talk about them first, and I don't want to start with the biggest one, but I'm going to start with Lies of P Overture was available today or the day that the announcement was made. So I thought that was pretty cool. I don't know how much the expansion is itself, and the review is already out, so I don't know if it has good reviews.
It got pretty good reviews. I think it's like pretty much in the 80s. The reviews for Lies of P are kind of strange because from what I'm remembering, a lot of people gave it 8s. Okay. But then it was a Game of the Year nominee. Most people put in their Game of the Year discussion. They think it's like one of the best games of this generation. So I feel like this is a game like Black Myth Wukong where the review scores don't accurately, capture the sentiment. For whatever reason, I think critics are a little bit harder on it.
Okay, that's interesting. Again, I'll take a look, and now that this update has come out to change the difficulty, another thing they announced was Dying Light: The Beast release date. So originally, Dying Light 2, by the way, came out a couple of years ago, and they initially announced that essentially this DLC was part of like an expansion pass. But instead of that, they decided to delay it for like a year or two, and now this is a complete brand new like set of DLC. It completely changes the gameplay like it's a pretty big beefy story, and I think it's free for people that initially bought the expansion pass. And you can buy this separately too. So they announced a release date, which is August 22nd. So, and it actually looks good. They released a 30-minute demo. It honestly looks pretty good. So I don't know, I always wanted to get into Dying Light too, and I never did, and people had a lot of gripes with it. Like there were some good ideas, but I think Metacritic wise it was like in the high 70s, low 80s. This actually looks decent, and honestly, if this gets good reviews like in the 8s, I might actually pick it up.
Yeah, Dying Light is one of those games where I'm just surprised I've never played it, right? Same. And a lot of times I'll be randomly scrolling something like, going through Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, and I'll come across some gameplay that looks sick, right? Yeah. And I'm just like, MySpace. And I'm just like, oh man, this looks so freaking sick. What is this?
Yeah, and it's always Dying Light.
It's Dying Light. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what?
And I've been telling myself for the last 5 years, like, I want to play Dying Light, and I'm not picking up because I have, not that I have a nostalgia for this, but I played, what was the game before they made Dying Light called again? The zombie game?
Oh, I don't remember. It's not Dead Island.
Dead Island. They made the first Dead Island.
You love that game.
Yes, Techland. And then they made this, and I'm like, I really want to play this game. So I think finally I'm going to pick this stuff up. I'm sure it's already on sale, and I'm sure that if I get the one with the expansion pass, I can just get this for really cheap. So there's that,
Yeah.
and then there's
Well, I
Onimusha.
guess before we can get to that, I wanted to talk about this Wu Tang game, Rise of the Deceiver, because I don't know if you've been keeping up with the leaks, but a lot of people kept saying Brass Lion is making this Wu Tang game that Xbox is teamed up with.
Hmm.
And then, so I was expecting, that to be announced at the Xbox showcase. All of a sudden, it just got announced here, and I don't see any Xbox branding.
Yeah,
I don't know what happened there, and I'm scouring the internet. I'm like asking myself, am I crazy? Like, did
a
I
little
read
bit.
the Reddit? I am,
No,
but
just kidding.
I'm like, did I not read the Reddit post correctly? But I even went back and looked, and definitely, like I want to say for years, people have been saying that this is tied. I think it's Project Belfry,
Okay.
or Project Stoic, something like that. And they've been saying that this is, going to be one of those
Like a
Xbox games, and then there's no mention of Xbox. So I wonder
interesting.
if this is something Xbox dropped halfway through. I wonder if anyone's going to look into it. And it makes me think, like, if this was something that Xbox was originally tied to, and then later they changed their mind, could that be something like contraband, right? Like, is that is that a possibility, right? So I just thought I'd bring it up because I thought that was interesting.
Interesting. Yeah, it looked like an interesting game. Onimusha, Way of the Sword got a new trailer. Again, I really like they're kind of drip feeding with this game. 2026 release date. I've never played any of the Onimusha games, but this seems more modern. Again, they're already claiming that it's going to be more of a linear focus. It's not going to be an open world thing. But I like the gameplay. It doesn't look like your typical. So we've been talking about all these games like Wu Chang and all these
Yeah.
action, and like this
It
game
doesn't feel like a carbon copy.
does not feel like a carbon copy. It's setting itself apart. The gameplay looks unique. The sword fighting looks unique. So I think I'm gonna get this a try. And again, the fact that it's being made by Capcom
Yeah.
yet
So I
again,
like that now some of the old action games that people loved in the PS2 and
they're coming
360 era
back.
are coming back, and they're not just copying the Souls like,
Yeah,
right? Because as much as I love Souls like I feel like Elden Ring was kind of like the icing on the cake, right?
yeah,
Like that was the ultimate culmination of like 10 years or 15 years, maybe more actually, honestly, at this point, of Souls like just
yeah,
developing, and it's like, where do you really go now, right?
yeah,
Like I feel like maybe, who knows, form soft might blow my mind, but I feel like most of the moves now are going to be lateral, right?
yeah.
Like
Of course.
because it's just so refined,
Yeah, it's
right?
refined. This seems to be somewhat methodical in its combat, but it also looks like it has a story, which is what I care about. And Capcom is so good at not only making unique gameplay, but also having unique stories. So
Yeah.
I'm hyped kind of for this, like cautiously optimistic, and I am probably
This
going
is
to.
a game where I have to wait to see what the reviewers say.
Yeah, for sure. There was a Game of Thrones War for Westeros announced.
Yeah.
Honestly, didn't really care much about it. Arc Raiders gets an October release date, and then there were some updates for Hitman, which I wasn't too worried about, and a new Scott Pilgrim game, which looked interesting. I think made by one of the developers that made one of the original games. Again, looks interesting. But the only one other thing that I wanted to talk about, which was, oh yeah, there was a new trailer for Death Stranding 2 at Summer Games Fest, and then by the way, Hideo Kojima just did a walkthrough of the game after that. It's like
Mm.
a 2 hour like walkthrough with a lot of the actors and the musicians and stuff that
I
make
mean, that's
music.
interesting, but I would also argue that the people who are buying Death Stranding 2 are already buying
Yeah.
it, you know?
But what was cool was they announced that this game has dynamic music. So when you're running and gunning and fighting, the music ramps up, and then when you stop and slow down and walk, the music kind of calms down. It was really cool, like the systems they've implemented in this
But isn't
game.
that like already a thing? Like, doesn't Halo already do that?
No, I
Or
think
like,
it's like more like the music just kind of plays and just
I mean,
it
I
ramps
guess I'll have to
up in
see
a
what
high
it's.
tension. But this is dynamic that anytime you run, anytime that it ramps
I mean,
up.
I think I'll have to see it in action.
Yeah. So again, we'll see. The review should be out in a couple of weeks. People, by the way, for people that don't know, there was already a preview event last month where people got to play 30 hours of Death Stranding 2. So most people already have an idea of probably how good the game is. We'll get reviews pretty early. Now, here's interesting. Stranger Than Heaven is the new Rio Gotogu's official name for Project Sentry. So Project Sentry was announced, I think, early this year in PlayStation State of Play, I think, and it was like a interesting looking game. These are the people that made the Yakuza games, and so this is their new game. It's called Stranger Than
Oh,
Heaven.
now I understand. Okay, so now I'm connecting the dots because I didn't realize what in the world I was looking at.
Yeah, this is
And I
so
didn't understand
they
why people were talking about it.
yeah. So again, this has been kind of re-revealed. So
But again, isn't it kind of like, what's the point of calling it a project and then 6 months later just giving the actual name.
Yeah, that was
Like, did
dumb.
you not know the title 6 months ago?
Maybe not, but I would assume they did. They were just still calling it because that was its code name, and it was weird to announce it with it in that state.
I feel like maybe they were trying to make like that was like their unique advertising angle to it. I don't know. I just think it's kind of a weird.
But
name.
They're not the only ones that do it. A lot of developers will come out with project names. It's just dumb. But either way, Stranger Than Heaven, interesting name. I didn't care. I think the trailer looked somewhat interesting. Again, they're clearly trying to flex their muscles and the amount of like NPCs you're interacting with and stuff. And I think the timepiece, like the era it's set in, looks interesting. Kind of reminded me a little bit of some of that Red Dead 2 in it. It was like interesting. The town, the era, the set piece. I was like, okay. And then, oh yeah, this was interesting. Sonic Racing's Crossworld announced a bunch of characters that are going to be in the game from like Minecraft, Persona, Like a Dragon. So this was leaked before the game, before Summer Games Fest announced it. And then I forgot who came out. I think someone from Sega basically said like, "Hey, this is really upsetting when leaks come out like this because it can ruin licensing deals." And maybe it doesn't happen if it gets leaked. So it's like you guys have to be very careful. Like, please try not to leak this stuff. So I don't know how accurate or true that is.
I mean, I'm happy they said it like that because I'm sure it can be, right? Like if the person you're making that deal with kind of decides to get cold feet, right? Then you can get really screwed. So.
And then the last thing that I just want to talk about, because everything else was kind of crud here, really was Resident Evil 9. So this has been teased for a long time by Golem Dusk or whatever, that one prominent leaker who's been talking about Resident Evil 9 for a long time. And it was so funny because the way they did it in the showcase was straight up like, hey, I know you've all been waiting for a new Resident Evil announcement, but if you blink your eyes, you might have an announcement real soon. And then 20 minutes later, they're like, Resident Evil 9. It was the weirdest thing you could do.
I don't know. I feel like it's these weird like marketing moves. Yeah. I don't get it. So I didn't I mean, I didn't think that was Resident Evil at first.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it. There's still like rumors that like Leon is going to be the main character. We don't know. It's called Resident Evil Requiem, and I think they didn't announce release date. No, they did February of 2026. So they said they're showing off more in August.
2026 is going to be a stacked year.
Yeah.
So again, I'm not a huge Resident Evil fan, but
also the fact that now Capcom is having 3 huge releases in 2026: Onimusha, Resident Evil, and Pragmata. Insane output.
I kind of get the feeling that these studios and companies are realizing that it's not necessarily cannibalizing, right? Because
they don't step on each other.
They might not actually, the same power user is going to buy all of them, right? And for someone who's not a power user, they might not buy any of them or buy one of them, and it doesn't matter if they're all next to each other, right? But when everything is stacked next to each other, they can kind of feed up hype, right? Because everyone's like, oh man, Capcom's on fire, right? And then they play one game. And then it's like, oh my God, Capcom's crazy. And then they play a second game, right? And so it just kind of like feeds into that, right? As opposed to like if someone releases a banger and now you're waiting like 6 years, right? Like, only a couple of like the most prestigious studios really get away with that, right? Like Larian, you release your game, it does not matter how long your next one comes out, right? But
I just think like Capcom's output is so insane that like they were working on Resident Evil remakes and new Resident Evil games in parallel, right, with different teams. Top of that, they're like, oh yeah, we're having 3 huge games come out all within the same year, and then they're like, oh yeah, I'm so confident that they didn't even show gameplay yet of Resident Evil 9, and I know that whatever it ends up being is going to be good.
I just feel like something clicked for them. Yeah, at some point something clicked, and they were just like, no, we're doing this, and they're just going all in. So
and they had Monster Hunter released this year too. So dude, they're probably making bank,
And I feel like what happens is they make money off of one game and then they use it to fuel all the others. And so they're not just milking one franchise, right? And then all the other franchises, they're just screwing around with some stupid project leaders, right? And then whatever, they lose, but whatever, we're still up, right? I just feel like they're doing such a good job, like just growing their garden. And I feel like a lot of these other Japanese companies like Square Enix, right? Like Sega, they have to be noticing, right? Yeah. I feel like Sega's been doing a good job of this too.
Sega's doing better.
And it's not a surprise, right? That, Sega is killing it with Atlas, right? Now they're branching Atlas beyond Persona.
Yeah.
And guess what? Now they're bringing back so many of their old franchises, right? And I think they're taking something out of the playbook of Capcom, and I feel like Square Enix is probably noticing too.
You got to kind of go in your bag of tricks They're bringing back Sonic in a really good way. It's been really doing well in parallel with the movie.
Oh yeah.
And the fact that Sega announced all those games last year that we know are coming out from old IP. So like if they can deliver on all of that, I'm not saying they're going to be Capcom like, but they're in the right direction. As a compared to Square Enix, who's just falling off a cliff. They, you
Yeah,
know,
and
it's
speaking of like, because they had that random like murder in an in game or
yeah,
whatever
it
like that,
just
and it just feels like, you know, they get a lot of flack for just basically doing the same thing again and again. So then instead of like taking a cautious step to the side, you know, and doing something and growing,
well,
they go so far to the left. You know, they
yeah,
go from like let's make a million Final Fantasies to let's make foam stars,
yeah.
and then to let's make this
Yeah,
random in
it's
game.
that tells you what little direction they have, and they don't believe in their strategy and their vision and purpose anymore. And whoever's running Square Enix obviously isn't doing good. They don't know what they're doing because when I look at Capcom and you tell me you release a new Resident Evil game almost every 2 years, and you've done that now for the last 6 to 8 years, and they all sold incredibly well.
Yeah.
Why can't I get that for high quality Final Fantasy
Yeah,
games?
and then
Why can't I get
when
one
they
every two
come out,
years?
they're really bloated and
Yes.
they're not as good as the past,
Yeah.
and
And
they're
don't
not meeting any sales
Yeah,
expectations.
and then it takes you 10 plus years to release a new Kingdom Hearts game. You can't even get that down. They just released new images of Kingdom Hearts 4 a couple weeks ago, and it looked like the same crud I saw the year prior. It's so
I
bad.
forgot that game is still in
It's
development.
so bad.
It's
And
been so long.
it's like if you're gonna announce something, get it out within 2 years of announcement. Give me a Kingdom Hearts 4 and a 5. You couldn't do that. Give me okay, you can't say Final Fantasy Remake because it's split into three parts counts as separate games. Don't do that. That is
No.
so dumb. And then they go, "Oh, Final Fantasy 16 didn't meet expectations." Okay, so we're just not going to do 17 because we don't know what direction to head in because we thought this was the right direction. Like you can't put your eggs in one basket. Like, you gotta keep innovating and keep rolling with the punches sometimes.
Yeah, Square Enix is funny. So,
Yeah,
and I guess maybe with that we can switch gears and
yeah.
talk about Xbox. So, me, I feel like I'm kind of biased, but, maybe I'll start by asking, how did you feel about the Xbox showcase? What do you feel like stood out? Because there's quite a lot of stuff for us to talk about, but I just kind of want to
Honestly,
get your, like, big picture thoughts.
definitely like a B minus for me.
Oh, that's lower than I expected.
Almost like a C plus. They teased some stuff in here that I think was a little disingenuous. Like specifically when they made an announcement that like there are other core franchises coming in 2026, like don't talk to me about something that's a year and a half away. You already set a precedent to say whenever we talk about games in our showcase, it's within the next 12 months. If you're not going to show them, then don't talk about them, so I don't like that Phil Spencer came in and then was like, yeah, Gears of War, Forza, and a franchise that's been with us since the beginning and doesn't say what. Like, don't tease something without saying
Yeah.
what it is. And it's like,
So I guess for me, I had the opposite reaction. Like, I like that take because, like, what's the alternative, right? So, I feel like it's one of those situations where, like, no matter what you do, someone's going to be unhappy because it's like a rock and a hard place. Like, if you release something and you pull resources away, right? Like, let's say they gave us a little mini, trailer of all of those big hits. It's going to take away from all of the games they have right now, and everyone's going to have, like, the Ghost of Yotai effect. Like, why are you giving me a 5 second clip of something? If they say nothing, then people on the internet are just going to be restless and they're going to be like, "Oh my God, Xbox is dead." So I think for Microsoft, they're experimenting. I think like every year they have a slightly different tactic on like, how am I going to show off my information, right? So I mean, it didn't bother me too much. I just thought their wording for what we're presuming is Halo was really strange.
yeah,
I think
and
like Halo, Gears, and Forza, like that was cool because that's kind of a surprise announcement in there. Like no one knew for sure next Forza game was coming out next year, right?
yeah, because
So
Fable's been being worked on.
yeah, so that was already like a big announcement, but like why are you so cryptic about something that's been there from the start? Like we
Yeah,
know it's
we know
Halo,
it's Halo,
but you
and
won't tell us it's Halo. And then like when
unless
people
you're
are
so scared that like the last time you announced Halo that you got burned that you're like you don't want because if you don't say it and it doesn't deliver in 2026, you like we weren't talking about
yeah.
Halo.
So it just doesn't make sense to me, and I feel like I didn't have a problem with Microsoft doing that technique. Like, hey, we don't want to take away from the 2025 games, right? We're just gonna like give you a little snippet, to salivate. But why leave the fourth a question mark? That was a bad decision.
Because it was so dumb. Because if it is Halo, the rumor now, like Tom Warren just came out after the fact saying, "Oh, and I know for sure they're talking about Halo Combat Evolved Remastered for 2026, which most likely means it'll come out PlayStation as well as Xbox." But if you're gonna do that and it's literally a year away, why not just show it?
Yeah,
Legitimate.
But that's what I mean. So like, unless you're thinking, okay, we don't want to show it because we don't want to tie away resource development, right, to make a trailer, because it does take a lot of effort to make a trailer. Because people used to complain about, hey, these E3 trailers, the reason why they come out so good and the game comes out shit later is we put so many resources towards the trailer.
Sure.
So I get that, but at the same time,
you couldn't do a pre-rendered trailer.
But if like Halo is in such a time crunch that like you cannot pull resources off, then it's, let's be honest, it's a 2027 game that you're trying to push into 2026.
Exactly. If you can't even make your own a 2-minute or 1-minute trailer, and on top of it, you could have just outsourced a trailer to a third-party company to make a pre-rendered cutscene. It's like, hey, this isn't representative of how it's going to look.
I'm with you. I think now would have been the time. If you were going to release Halo in 2026, you should have given us something in this. So I thought that was a really weird choice.
Unless the only thing I could think of, because this is being done so quickly, is the remaster of Halo Combat Evolved isn't the UE prototype stuff that we've seen. It's what they did with Gears of War on PlayStation.
So I have a feeling, this is just my kind of, suspicion. I don't think it's CE remake. I don't think that's coming out next year.
Well, I don't think it's remake. I think it's remaster. I think they upscaled Gears of War to go on PlayStation. They didn't change a whole lot.
But the thing is, like, if they did that, right? Like, okay, sure. I think the backlash would be so toxic. I don't think they're.
But why would it be so toxic?
Because Halo has already been remastered, and then if they re-release it, and then they say like, this is our big game, right? Like, you gotta like think about it this way, like Halo. Fable is getting a new installment. Gears is getting a new installment.
Yeah.
Forza, we can assume, is getting a new installment. A remake does not feel the same as all of those, but I think people will let it slide if it looks and feels substantially different. But if you take Halo 1, which has already been remastered, right, and then you're upscaling and remastering a remaster,
sure,
then it's going to piss so many people off.
You're extending it to a bigger fan base that hasn't played it. So
if that's the case, why not just release Master Chief Collection on PS5?
That might be a lot more effort than they thought.
But if they do that, if they just release Halo 1, but then they're going to bring Master Chief Collection, then they're like dragging it out. So I don't know. It could happen, but personally, what I think is going to happen is I think Halo CE Remake is making progress. I think it's possible it can come out at the end of 2026, right? But I think probably it's going to be a 2027 game that they're trying to force into 2026. Again, I think they're trying to just make that perfect, like, Infinity Stone punch. I wonder, and maybe I'm giving Xbox too much credit. I probably am.
You normally do.
But I know Certain Affinity has been cooking up something for a while.
Dude, I haven't seen them put out fucking Jag Diddley's Squad.
Because they're helping everybody else. So, all the rumors, and a lot of these rumors have been substantiated. Like, I was watching Sean McDubb's videos, and he was totally right on so much stuff, right? Like, they were working, and they were pretty far in a battle royale, and then they switched gears, right? And then they decided, ironic, right? But then they switched over to Unreal, and so because the engine just wasn't working out, right? And so I get that. But all of that work doesn't just get scrapped, right? So I feel like Certain Affinity is working on something that might be a standalone project, right?
Maybe.
And I think people are just jumping the guns, a bit, and they're just assuming it's CE Remake. I think there's a possibility it's a CE Remake, but I also think it's a possibility it's a standalone multiplayer-only experience for Halo.
Which has been rumored for a long time.
Yeah, and so I think Microsoft has multiple Halo projects cooking, and I think it can be either one of them. And I think Microsoft does not know which one is going to come out first. And I think that's why they're being cryptic.
Now that could make sense.
Because they don't know if it's going to be the next installment of Halo, and then it ends up not being the next installment of Halo, but a standalone multiplayer project, and then everyone is like, Phil Spencer, you lied, right? And they don't want to release a trailer for a Halo CE remake, because what if that gets pushed to 2027?
That would be...
And then everyone's like, Phil Spencer, you lied. So I think they purposely kept it cryptic.
He's like, how do I tell?
Because I think
how do I tell my fans that my favorite franchise is coming next year without telling them what it is?
I think both. There's multiple Halo projects cooking, and I think there are various different sizes because they realize that they can't just put all their eggs in one basket because 343 and now Halo Studios is just not that guy, right? And I think this is my suspicion. I think they don't know which one's going to come out first.
That's fair. I didn't think about it that way, but you know what? That's probably why they're saying
but it's still a weird thing to do, and if you had just said we're celebrating with Gears, Fable, Forza, and maybe a surprise,
right?
Yeah,
just
I think that would come off better than saying something that's been with us since
and then the funniest part is that after the show ends, immediately Tom Warren's like, yeah, and I know what the surprise is. It's this game. It's so hilarious. It's just like...
But if you think about it, how would they get CE Remake done in time, right? Because if it's taken them 3 years or 2 or 3 years just to get their shit together for Halo Infinite, right? And then they basically released that video, switched to Halo Studios, their Unreal Engine now, and they are basically asking for help. And they're calling people in. How can you then release a game that's high quality, that's faithful enough in 2 years?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
It has to be a minimum of 3 years. This looks like a 2027 game that I think Microsoft is trying to push into 2026. So we'll see. And honestly, if Halo didn't come out next year, I would be totally fine without it because we already have Gears E-Day, the new Fable, and Forza, not to mention all the other Xbox announcements, right? So why even set up that expectation? So it's just kind of strange. But I guess we can talk about the rest of the showcase. I think I rated kind of higher than you. I'd probably give it a B+. I was pretty excited with the show overall. And I think for me, the biggest disappointment of this show is the fact that there was no surprise announcements, right?
Yeah, well, there was. Let's not bullshit.
Are you talking about the handheld?
No, Call of Duty 7.
Oh, God.
Let's go!
I feel like that's where they really let down the most people because Call of Duty 7, why did that trailer look too good? It looked too good.
Yeah, it started off unique, and I'm like, what is this? And then it was just like a weird simulation kind of. It's like Black Ops 7. It's like, dude, this isn't even a surprise. The thing is,
Black Ops does get kind of weird, right? So I did felt like it was a little on brand, but still, that looked like an amazing new IP.
Yeah.
And then you find out it's Call of Duty. Yeah. It's just a strange thing to end on. So I just felt like that was a little weird. I think it was a little weird for their selection of words, for Halo. Other than that, I was generally pretty happy with the overall showcase. I think last year's showcase was a lot better for me, but that's because it had to be better, right? Because they needed to make big announcements.
Oh, last year was insane, utterly insane.
And so the thing is, in a weird way, again, maybe I'm too much of a fanboy, I feel like this is a good problem for Microsoft to have. This showcase did not lack games, and it did not lack good games either, right? It just was not surprising. It felt almost formulaic because it just felt like Microsoft is going to business. They're just sitting you down and they're just presenting because they're just doing business.
But see, this is now a little bit relative. I can compare to last year's showcase, which was utterly an A+, knocked out of the park. This isn't a B+ to me. This is a B because...
But the thing is, how many of those type of shows can you have again and again? Because even if you have 26 studios, how many surprise announcements can you have if you're also having a developer direct every 6 in between, right? If you didn't have a developer direct, then you could have taken all those surprise announcements and shown them off. But at this point,
no, I mean, I didn't expect them to follow it up with the same type of showcase from last year. But again, I can compare relative. The bar has been set. This to me wasn't a B+.
So that's fair. I mean, we could agree to disagree, but to me, I think you also need to have showcases like this, and I don't think it's a bad thing, because I think you do need showcases that just do business, right?
Yeah.
They answer questions, and they don't have to answer them in this hyperbolic way. They're just getting the job done, right? So, and for me, the biggest surprise of the show was probably the Game Freak game.
Oh yeah,
I did
that was
not
insane.
expect that game to be on Game Pass.
Well, also because everyone is now making fun of them by saying, this is the output you put on the Switch. It looks like utter garbage. It's Scarlet and Violet. And they go, this is what you put out on PlayStation and Xbox?
Yeah.
So, god dog shit. Dude.
So the thing is, I don't really know how good the game is going to
Yeah, I
be,
don't know
because
either.
it's kind of the action RPG, Souls like type of game we're getting. That feels like a dime or a dozen at this point.
Yeah,
So I don't actually know if I'm going to love it, but the fact that it's a very big developer and they're making their first game, really, right?
out of Pokemon.
That's really big game that's not Pokemon on Game Pass.
Yeah, big
That
game.
kind of like opens the horizons, right? So like now it's not just like indies or traditional like AA developers. Like you could even consider like studios that we consider AAA that now want to do something totally different.
Yeah.
Well, come on over to Game Pass, right? So you don't have to be as worried about the risks you might take,
Yeah.
right? So I really love that.
They announced Hollow Knight Silksong, which no one thought was ever going to come out this year, and it's a launch title for the ROG Ally or Xbox Ally X and X
Yeah.
Ally. So that was interesting because this game has been on ice forever, and I don't know if it's actually going to make it, but the fact that they're very confident, they're like, yeah, it's coming out this holiday.
So I just don't know why they're not really showing stuff off for it, but I guess it does its own marketing, right? Like people don't really need to do anything.
Which is weird how that game became that popular. Like
people love it. So I guess other things I wanted to talk about. There were two new Xbox Game Studio games that got announced. I did not expect Grounded 2. That was a huge surprise to me. And I did
3 games in 1 year.
In 1 year, that's insane. And I did not expect Grounded 2 to basically be a partnership with Eidos Montreal.
Yeah, that's weird.
And what is Eidos? And then I remember they said the line that we felt like Eidos Montreal is similar to us and kind of like their workflow and stuff like that. I was like, am I missing something? Like, I would never think Eidos Montreal wanted to make a game about spiders and ants.
Yeah,
So that was a surprise. I like the way they're expanding Grounded. I think it's interesting that they're deciding to make it like an early release type of game, early access. It's also crazy to me how many people play Grounded, because I think they were saying it's like 10, 15 million, maybe more than that. Yeah. So that's mind-blowing to me that was a game made by just 10 or 12 people. Yeah. So I think that's going to be a huge hit for them as well.
I mean, I'm surprised they didn't announce Perfect Dark again, or like just show off more gameplay. It was nice to see it last year, but like, man, another year goes by and there's utter silence. Like, it's another Game Award, just like Wolverine. Like,
well, why do you get worried about things like if you don't hear about them in a year?
Because you show it off last year, particularly with no release date, and then you would hope that they would just say coming 2026. You just say, like, here's progress. But if you're not consistent on that, it's okay. It's just that this was a game you were touting a reason for like fans to be happy about. This isn't like a double A game. That they called
it's a big game, yeah.
They called it a quadruple A back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, I think that terminology is really kicking them in the butt. But the thing is, like, I don't know, maybe I had a different opinion. I feel like I saw enough of Perfect Dark that, there's still some questions about it, right? But I'm not going to really get those questions answered until we see it close to release date, I think we should just let them cook, And again, I think Perfect Dark is probably something that if it's not coming out 2027, we're going to see it in a developer direct.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's the perfect type of game for that. And I really think Microsoft is trying to emulate Sony, and they don't want to overcrowd. Because, if they have so much, it gets diluted out, right? Yeah. And so, like, Perfect Dark, they're probably just going to show it off 3 to 6 months before it comes out. And I think that's what Microsoft is trying to train your brain to do. And I think right now, we're so used to the Xbox where we have to constantly see what they're doing because we think they're going to screw everything up. And they want to be seen as Sony. We're like, don't worry, we got you. We're going to show you this game. It's going to come out 3 to 6 months from now.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
I don't think they've earned that reputation yet, but they're trying.
They Another game they announced is Final Fantasy is finally coming to Xbox. So you got Remake Intergrade coming out this winter, and that it's also launching at the same time on the Switch too. And then Final Fantasy 16 is out today. That was a shadow drop.
I mean, interesting that 16 came out before Remake.
Yeah, I don't understand where the recent who's doing their porting in house, because why would 16 first? I don't know.
I was just actually watching some stuff from Digital Foundry, and they kind of were giving the perspective that Final Fantasy 16, the port is not that great.
The Xbox port.
The Xbox port is not that great.
The PC port wasn't great either. So there's something going on where they did a quick, either they outsourced it or they're
because again, they've had so many years. So
yeah, like what is going on?
But whatever. But I also think it's interesting that Remake is getting so much attention, and Rebirth just came out. So it makes me wonder like how long do we have to wait for Rebirth to come out
A
on all the
while.
other consoles? Like if it's a like a 2027 thing, like I feel like that's the latest you could do it. But like man, if it's later than that, like come on, like
Well,
people are gonna be over.
actually, sorry. Let me phrase this different. There are rumors that Rebirth is going to come out on the Switch 2 next year. Rumors that was reported by credible leakers. So
So
I
I
wouldn't
mean,
be
if they do
surprised.
that, then I
Yeah,
feel like it would come on Xbox right
yeah,
away.
because
So
this is both
I
coming out at
mean,
the same time.
I think this addresses like a big weak point of Microsoft, which is the lack of the Final Fantasy games, right? And especially after 15 was on everything. So I think that's helpful. But again, I've already played both of them, right? And I feel like the hype has died down on them. So
Yeah,
I think it's a good announcement,
it's a little too
but
late.
it kind of feels like again doing business, right? Like a lot of this stuff felt like a little too little, too late, right?
Yeah,
But
too
at
late.
least they're going to business and getting these things done. So, and I
Um,
guess another one of the games that I wanted to talk about was Keeper. You know, I know you haven't really gotten to play Psychonauts 2,
yeah,
but I absolutely love that game. You know, and
yeah. This looks
I did
interesting.
not expect to like Psychonauts 2 as much as I did, and it automatically went really high up on my list. You know, maybe I overhyped myself, but I was personally kind of disappointed by the Keeper reveal.
Yeah, I
You know,
was too. It
I
is.
was seeing it and I was like, all right, this is like a fascinating vibe, but like from a gameplay perspective, like how cool is it going to be a
Yeah, a lighthouse.
lighthouse? You
Like
know,
you
like
gave
how much am I actually going to be able to do?
and how much storytelling can you do? Because like you give them so many years to now work on their next game. I would have loved to see them do Banjo Kazooie.
Yeah.
I just feel like they were primed to do a game like that. And again, let them give them the freedom that they want. But if this game doesn't do well, I don't know how much longer the studio is going to be around.
I mean, I think Double Fine will survive. I don't want to be hyperbolic. Like, think about it. They've
Does Psychonauts
survived.
sell well?
Psychonauts sold well, but think about it. Like, Double Fine has survived through so much and through so many decades. I don't see Double Fine and Tim Schafer like going anywhere.
Maybe not.
But I think like I don't think this is their only game. I think they have multiple things cooking. I just think it's interesting that they would rather stay in the double A space and make multiple games as opposed to trying to build up towards a Banjo or, you know, like a Psychonauts 3. I'm going to definitely play this game, but, you know, to me it kind of looked a little more mid to me, but we'll see. I think I was reading somewhere that there's no like conversations, right? So it's
Yeah, that's what I'm
and
saying.
so
How are they going to storytell it?
and so this is the type of game where either it's going to be just absolutely insane and people are going to talk about like this is the most like emotional magical experience I've had, or it's going to be like oh my god, like you know what happened. Like
Yeah.
I feel like this is
No,
either
I don't think
a
they're going
sink
to
or
put out.
swim, you know.
I don't think so. I don't think they've ever put out. I mean, I don't say ever. They haven't put out a bad game in a while. So I actually am confident that regardless of what it is, it's going to be pretty decent. Like, it's going to be a unique idea.
For me, like I kind of feel like I mean, this is not the same as Pentiment, you know, but like kind of that thing, you know, where like, you know, you have a studio that has a pretty long history and they're trying to make like kind of a passion project or something
Mm.
unique. So, you know, I'll see. I think it's interesting when it's being released because this is coming out at the same
Oh, there's a
time
release. Oh, it's
that
awesome.
in October. And I think within the same 2 weeks, we have this coming out,
Ninja Gate.
Ninja Gaiden
And a bunch
4,
of other
and then
games.
Outer Worlds 2.
Yeah, there's
So there
and some stuff from Sony as well. Like, there's a lot of
yeah.
games.
So October's gonna be crazy, right? And it's interesting that April was crazy for
Pokemon on October 16th.
oh my god, yeah. So everything is just coming out in that week. So that's gonna be an insane week. I'm definitely gonna play this. I'm definitely gonna play Ninja Gaiden 4. But I guess like that kind of, we can go on next to what I loved the most about the show was two things. The freaking RPGs, man. I felt like Outer Worlds 2
Yeah.
and In Exile's game Clockwork Revolution, they really showed up, man. And I feel
Yeah.
like they looked so freaking good, so polished. I don't even know which one I liked more. And I absolutely adored the way that they presented Outer Worlds 2. Like, I don't know who the actor is.
Yeah, it's
But
isn't that the guy that does the Sonic's voice in the live action films?
he might. I think he was also in that Space Force TV show
Yeah.
on Netflix before it got canceled. Bro, that was hilarious. Like
Yeah,
the
it's funny.
whole way they presented it, I was laughing the whole time.
Yeah, it was good.
And I've never had that much fun watching a presentation. Like I think a lot of people try to bring humor into like their presentations, but it sometimes comes off like a gimmick. But man, Obsidian just nailed the tone of that entire presentation. The gameplay looks fantastic, right? To me, like the gunplay looks great. There's so much variety in what you can do, and it was such a subtle. It was such a smart way of just having those interviews about the deficits that people can
Yeah.
have, and one is like staring into the sun, and one is bad knees, and then you
Yeah.
look at the game and you look at the real world
Yeah.
like ramifications of those things in the game. I was like, oh my god, this is
It was funny. It was good.
yeah, and I think like that game is probably gonna like shut up a lot of people who are just hating on Obsidian because I feel like this is the internet. Like they just like it's like a rage bait title, like, oh, the once great studio is dead, right? Because they
Yeah.
saw Avowed, they didn't feel like Avowed was all about Obsidian, right? And meanwhile, Obsidian's cooking Outer Worlds 2, which is basically giving you everything that you want from an Obsidian game, but
Yeah.
Obsidian is dead, and I feel like, sometimes developers want to do something a little different, right? Doesn't mean
Yeah.
like they're dead, right? So I thought that was interesting.
In Exile's game looked
In
interesting. The
Exile's
steampunk
game,
game.
like, definitely had such a glow up.
Yeah.
I felt like, I mean, and I really have to watch the trailer again in 4K. But man, it just looks so good. Like the textures, the lighting. Like I love the steampunk punk aesthetic. I love the way they presented the game as well. The
Yeah.
story sounds really fascinating. The
Yeah.
choice and consequence are
Choice and
interesting,
consequences. Yeah.
and I love that it kind of has this like humor. It's almost like British humor. It's like this
Yeah. It
like
definitely was.
dark, kind of dry humor, and man, I thought that looked amazing, and I was so disappointed when they didn't even give us a release year because
Yeah, that was
based off that,
surprising.
I was so shocked. Based off of that presentation, I was like, this looks like it's ready to go in 2026.
Yeah,
Right?
there's definitely a lot there, and again, is it going to be a beefy game? Every time an Exile releases a game, it's a huge.
They're pretty beefy. Wastelands 3 was beefy
It
as
was
hell.
beefy as
So,
hell. So maybe
and
that's why.
I don't want to glaze too much because you never know, right? Especially when someone is transitioning from like a CRPG, to a first person shooter
Yeah.
RPG. That's a pretty big transition.
jump.
So we don't know how it's gonna go, but man, if this hits the way I think it's gonna hit, like it's really gonna elevate in Exile into
Yeah,
kind of the higher stratospheres of the
I
RPG
agree.
world, and it's just fantastic to see that glow up. And it's I think as someone who's a manager, like you could probably speak to this, like it kind of makes me think about like the role of a manager and like what happens when you give all these different creative studios like a bunch of money, right?
Mhm.
And it's interesting, it's almost like a case report in how everyone goes a different way, right?
Yeah.
Like some people fizzle out, some people kind of do more of what they're doing, they make more lateral moves, some people reach for the skies and
Yeah.
then they burn, right? And some people just really, all they really needed was resources,
Yeah.
right? That was the main thing holding them back, and everyone else is having other things that are holding them back, but these people just need resources. Like Obsidian, they just needed resources.
Yeah, time and money.
And Exile, they just needed resources.
I forgot who said it. One of them said it in the trailer. They're like, "Oh, with more money and time, this is what we're able to do." They literally said that in their
and so I love that. And I liked Hellblade 2 a lot. I know I know how you feel about Hellblade 2.
Worst games I've ever
played. I know how
Yeah.
you feel about Hellblade. But I say that because like, I feel like the way Ninja Theory reacted to
Which, by the
having
way,
a
is coming
bunch
to
of money,
PlayStation.
yeah, I know, right? More news. But the way Ninja Theory kind of reacted to getting like a bag full of money is so different, right? Because, I mean, we got to see what Project Mara looks like. But I felt like Ninja Gaiden 2 was lateral, if not downslope, right? Like, I think we can both agree on it being more of kind of a downward curve for that studio.
You mean Hellblade 2?
Oh, what did I say?
Ninja Gaiden 2.
Oopsie. Freudian slip. I love Ninja Gaiden 2. So I was thinking about Gaiden 4, but yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to see how both of those RPGs pan out, and I think Microsoft is really happy with those hits, man. I think those really paid off for them.
I think so too. They're unique. You don't see those style and flavors of games like often, and again, I kind of trust in Exile. I didn't play Wasteland 3 a whole lot, but it was kind of fun for some time. And it's not my style of game, but I think they can translate well. You just have to give these teams the freedom to try something else. And it's like when Guerrilla went from Killzone to Horizon. Like they knew they could kind of stretch themselves, and they wouldn't have known that if Sony didn't say like, okay, you got one shot. They just needed that one shot. It's the same thing with Naughty Dog when they went from like Crash Bandicoot to Uncharted to Last of Us.
You just gotta believe in your teams, right? So, and I think it's so interesting now that you have multiple studios making multiple RPGs that all are kind of in different settings, right? Like, how cool is it that we get a fantasy RPG setting, right? Like Avowed and Skyrim, right? And then we also get space RPGs like Starfield and now Outer Worlds, right?
Yeah.
And then now we have a Victorian,
Yeah.
like
And we're still getting Fable.
RPG, right? And
Yeah.
so we're getting so much variety in the settings of the RPGs too, right?
Yeah.
And so
They can kind of all learn from each other too. It's not like, they don't
yeah,
all have to work in a silo. I think
of
that's the
course.
best thing about Microsoft, and kind of what comes
And
from there.
especially like if a lot of them are using like similar engines, right?
Yeah.
Like if that's id
and
Tech or Unreal Engine.
and just knowledge sharing. If you are using same tech, but also if you aren't, you go, hey, here's good game design. This is how we like use work within our pipeline. You might want to try
Yeah.
that this way. You can make your development more efficient if you go about it
Yeah.
this way.
And I really do hope that I think Outer Worlds 2 is going to be a big hit for them, and I think Microsoft is doubling down on Outer Worlds, and that's
Clearly,
why
yeah.
you're
It's out
seeing
this
them
year, right?
not it's in October, and that's why they're not giving as much attention to some of
Did
their
you
other
watch the
releases.
developer direct afterwards or no?
Yes, I did.
I haven't watched it yet. So did the gameplay actually look good?
Oh, dude, you need to go watch it. It's the funniest thing, and the
Okay.
gameplay looked great. You're gonna love it. So
So the two other
and
games.
that's also when they were showing off Grounded, so they did kind of like a double feature.
Right.
So I would say that was hilarious and that was super worth it. But the reason I bring it up is, I feel like Obsidian doubled down on the Obsidian DNA
Yeah.
with Outer Worlds, and with Avowed, they were trying to go more in that Mass Effect like RPG light action RPG type of thing, right? And I hope they make an Avowed too because I really did enjoy Avowed, and I wonder how they'll morph that, right? Like if now they'll take that action RPG, which really I thought the gameplay of Avowed was fantastic, right? And I felt like it was easy to digest. It wasn't overwhelming. But now they'll bring in some of the learnings that I had with Outer Worlds 2 and kind of get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, that's
So,
fair.
and if you think about it, like, look at the way Outer Worlds 2 feels like a glow up from the first one, right? And so you can have the same
Also,
thing
they
with like,
probably had, if they've split their teams up, their A team was probably working on Outer Worlds out of
oh
all three
yeah,
of the games. So we're probably gonna see that, which is again why they're advertising and marketing more than any of the other games. And now Grounded 2 kind of just speaks for itself. It's kind of like Sea of Thieves, where hey, people just liked it and they know more people will play and they don't have to say a whole lot about it. But Outer Worlds 2 is the one game where they're like, we had our A team on it, we've worked on it for years, and you're gonna now fully experience like what Obsidian brings to the
and
game.
I'm
And
also
Avowed was, it was kind of there. It's just that it didn't really speak to a lot of people.
yeah, I mean, it didn't hit the same way for the general gaming audience, right? And it also makes me wonder. I think his name is Josh Scheuer, right? Like, and I wonder what he's up to because he was very focused on
Pentiment
Pentiment,
too.
right? And so I wonder how involved he's been with Outer Worlds, or if really he's now
Doing
creating a
something
whole
else.
other project, right?
Maybe.
Because they wanted 7 games in 7 years. That was their goal, right? And my God, they might actually deliver because they got Outer Worlds 2, they have 2 Grounded games, they have Pentiment, and then they have Avowed. That's already 5
Two
games.
more games.
And so that's 2 more games.
They get
right?
to shut down afterwards.
And so, right, it's like, how many more ideas can you have? But that makes me wonder, like, is Josh cooking something else, right? Like, what could he be cooking?
Yeah.
So I thought all of that was pretty good.
Yeah, there's a couple games I want to talk about. So Ninja Gaiden 4 comes out October 21st. This is a multi-platform, so it'll be on PlayStation as well. What was interesting is they showed off another trailer, which, again, looking at the gameplay, has me pretty hyped for this. It really does look like they didn't change a whole lot for Ryu. Like, legitimately, the stuff that I'm playing right now in Ninja Gaiden Black 2 is legitimately what I'm seeing here. And it's like, okay, fine. The new protagonist is probably what they want to focus on. But I do expect that this game to fix a lot of the problems that were in Black 2.
Just fix the camera.
The camera specifically. Now, there's also, I can't believe this, a Super Meat Boy 3D reveal.
Do you know what Super Meat Boy is? I'm not familiar with this at all.
10 or 15 years ago, when Super Meat Boy first came out, super popular game. It's like a 2D, like almost like platformer, but like it's unique in the sense that like you can die really easily. It's, in some weird sense, it's kind of like gory. But they're basically, it's like them transforming Mario from 2D to 3D. This is what this looks like to me. So this to me is somewhat revolutionary for this franchise because the last one that came out was so long ago and it was so popular. So this is like a Mario moment for me. And maybe not a lot of people are talking about this, but this to me was a Mario moment. It was like wow, here's Mario Galaxy. Like this is what I saw when I saw this trailer. So I'm honestly hyped that they show this at the Xbox gameplay. Now, is this multi-platform? I don't know.
I think it is, yeah. And I don't think it's on Game Pass, but still, I feel like one of the big holes that Microsoft has is lack of platformers, right? And so you have Astrobot, you have Mario, like, Banjo apparently no one wants to make. And we're probably far out from Spyro or Crash. So it doesn't
Yeah.
feel like there's a lot of even third party platformers, right? Because
Yeah.
for whatever reason, a lot of the platformers we're seeing now are mascots, right, for
Yeah.
their respective console brand. So we're not really seeing a lot of just platforming games for kids to play.
Yeah, I agree. Another thing was there was an update to see if they've set season 17. Kind of crazy because
Still going.
I feel like this is doing better than Destiny ever has. Like in some weird ways, where Destiny has flopped up and down, has had
I
its
mean,
highs
Sea
and
of Thieves has
lows.
just been like continuously growing,
Yeah,
and
it's
it's
called
just crazy. And now they have like PlayStation, all of those people playing as
yeah,
well. I'm sure. I think they
Smuggler's
have like
Tide.
40 million people or
It's
something
something 30 or
crazy.
40. Another thing that was announced was the Xbox Ally X and the ROG Xbox Ally. This is kind of crazy because there's been rumors recently that from again credible leakers that Xbox was working on their own handheld and they decided to kind of shelf it for the time being. And they're just focusing on getting a unified Windows 11 experience on the ROG Ally with the Zen 2 or the Z2 AMD processor, or what is it called? I forgot what it's called, the Z2 Extreme. And then on top of that, they announced the Silksong is going to release day and date when this comes out. Now, right now, the current version with the Z1 Extreme is about $1,000. Like the ROG Ally has upped their prices, which is kind of crazy. So when this comes out, it'll probably be roughly around the same price. But you can play Xbox PC games on this natively, cloud stream, and you can still launch other storefronts. So I think this is interesting. They made the shape more ergonomic. It has now the rhombus, the Xbox
I
rhombus.
really like the way they presented it in the trailer,
Yeah,
like how it just kind of comes in and it morphs to your fingers.
that's
Like,
cool.
man, that marketing team is great. I have actually thought a lot about this, and I've been wanting to talk about it for a while because I feel like I'm hearing takes all over the place, right? And I think like very realistic people, and I think you mentioned this too. Digital Foundry was talking about this as well. If you think about how much of a system mover this is going to be, it's not going to sell much, right? Like but I kind of feel like what this is for gaming is what my Galaxy Fold is, right? That really that enthusiast, that hardware device that kind of shows you what gaming could be, right? Like remember back in the days when we had the Surface Studio, right?
Yeah,
And I mean that was a low volume thing, but it really sold you on the vision and got you excited for where this company is going, right?
yeah,
This does not seem like it's a high volume type of thing.
yeah.
And so because of that, I don't think Microsoft is going to eat a lot of cost, right? Like if they thought that they were going to sell tens of millions, 50 million, 70 million of these, then they would probably eat the cost and try and make it competitive, right, with the Switch. I don't think they're going to do
No,
that.
I don't think
I think
so.
this is more kind of a statement piece, and I think it's a much needed kick in Microsoft and Windows ass to
Yeah.
finally optimize
Yeah,
so
Windows.
they can actually fight SteamOS because SteamOS is just
This is
running away with things. And the thing is, like, the Steam Deck does not sell much, right? But think about how much the narrative has changed for Steam, right?
yeah,
Think about when there was all those Steam computers, right? And then Steam Big Picture and stuff like that. And people weren't talking about that in the same way, right? But now Steam Deck, they're talking about it in such a way where you can't even imagine Steam vanishing, right? And like we've always felt that way, but like now the distance between Epic Game Store, really Epic, I feel like is
yeah.
one of the competitors, it just feels even grander, right?
Okay.
And bigger. And so I think like this is kind of the move Xbox has with the Ally X. I don't know if I'm gonna buy it to be honest.
Yeah, I'm not sure yet either.
Because I do, if I didn't already have an ROG Ally, then I would probably buy
Yeah,
this.
then I would have bought it.
But after getting an ROG Ally, I feel like for me personally, I really enjoyed playing it for a while, but then I really got sick of updating it and charging it and having to deal with it not resuming from standby.
Yeah,
And even if Microsoft cleans up a lot of that, they're not going to clean up all of it, right? And I don't feel like spending that large sum of money for something that feel to me is going to be an in between product because
yeah,
I don't think, and I think Digital Foundry made this argument like when you make a switch, like you expect that switch to carry you for 7 8 years. When you make the Xbox Ally X, does anyone think that this is going to carry Windows
yeah.
handhelds for 7 to 8 years? No.
Probably not.
Anyone buying this thing is probably going to realize, yeah, I mean, this is going to be outdated in like 3 years,
Yeah,
tops. But whatever, I want the enthusiast device. So
yeah. I mean, I wonder also if is the new Windows 11 UI and OS going to be compatible with the older versions of ROG Ally. Like, if this is truly just specifically to really for the form factor, let me just update my older
Yeah.
ROG
So
Ally.
Microsoft kind of answered that. Like they were giving a lot of like vaguish answers, but they said maybe, probably, like things like that. So I think they don't know because they haven't cracked it yet. So they haven't
Which is
actually figured it
dumb
out completely.
because
And so they're like, okay, we're gonna figure it out, excuse me, first, and then know what the pipeline looks like to
yeah,
bring it to everything
afterwards.
else. But I think Microsoft has every intention of bringing it to everything else
Yeah, because like I don't want to like
because it's not like they're going to withhold it to make people upgrade,
yeah,
because how many people are actually going to be pissed off enough that they're not getting the new
yeah,
software that they'll upgrade from an ally, one of the old allies,
yeah.
to the Xbox Ally X? It's
Well,
such a small fraction of
it's
people.
also not, yeah, agreed, and it's also not easy to. There's no resale market for this
Exactly,
device,
right? It's such a
so
enthusiast device, right? And
yeah,
so, okay, like you make a little bit more money because you force people to upgrade, but how many people are going to hate you, right?
yeah,
And you sold what, 200,000 more
yeah. Like
copies,
that's all. Yeah,
500,000 more copies? Like what? It's not going to push the needle
yeah,
for Microsoft. So I don't think they're going to do that. I think they have every intention that if they have the resources to move to other things, they will.
yeah,
But Microsoft is finicky and they move fast. So I think the reason they can't tell us concretely is they don't actually know their roadmap for 3 to 4 years. And, it's like, okay, what if everything they want to do with the Xbox Ally X takes a year and a half?
yeah,
And then it would take half a year to a year to bring that to a different console, to the older ones. Where are we going to be in 2.5 years? Are we going to be like 75% into the development of a handheld,
yeah,
right? A true handheld. And can we even make that happen when we have Xbox Play Anywhere? So I think Microsoft is in this weird zone, which is very, very much a double-edged sword,
yeah,
where they're moving fast and they are trying to really change a lot and do very unique things. And because of that, like, it's kind of chaotic,
yeah,
right? It's kind of messy, but at least things are changing, right? And we
yeah,
could end up, and I think we will end up with a pretty good result because this is how Microsoft does stuff, right? Like this is how Windows became such a big player in the early 90s, in the 90s, right?
yeah.
So I'm excited for it. Probably not going to buy it, but I'm excited for it, and I'm really excited for how this is going to shape the future, like 2 years from now.
Yeah, I agree. The more the time goes on, the more advancements we're gonna get. I never thought Xbox would have branded with someone like Asus to do that, but it just tells you that like we're gonna get even more and more in the coming years.
And one thing I thought that was fascinating, and I only noticed this with Digital Foundry. So, how many times did Microsoft tell us play anywhere, play anywhere? I felt like it was all over the place in this showcase, even more
Yeah,
so than older showcases, right? And I think it can actually give you some insight into what Microsoft is thinking. Like, I feel like in years past, like Game Pass was the biggest thing, right? Here, Game Pass is still a big thing, but I think they really want you to know you can play anywhere. And at first, I didn't understand the whole point, but then I realized that a lot of third party games that are coming out on Xbox are not play anywhere, right? And so when you buy the Xbox copy, you do not get the Microsoft Xbox copy as
yeah,
well. And so that's a big pain because a lot of their first party games, you don't have that problem. And so now a lot of these games that they're announcing will have that Xbox Play Anywhere.
yes.
So you buy it on the Xbox, you
You
play on the
get two
PC.
copies,
And so that way you don't have
cross
to run into the
progression.
issue because
Yeah,
if you buy an Xbox Ally X and you buy the Xbox digital version of the game, might not be able to play it, right? Because unless this Xbox Play Anywhere, there's no way you're going to play it on that, right?
yeah,
And that's going to piss off a lot of people. But I think if like this is that transition moment, right? This is like not as big as like the M1 Mac, obviously, but kind of that movement towards getting Xbox Play Anywhere
I think
across the board, which I think would be a very good result if all developers end up in the point where you buy an Xbox copy and you get both the Microsoft Store copy on PC
yeah.
and the Xbox copy.
Well,
That'd be
I
amazing.
don't know how the contracts look like. Like, are they paying the developers a little more because like most games now are multi-platform. So when they come out on Xbox and PlayStation, they also come out on Steam. So they're like, if you're already making a PC version, we want you to make an Xbox PC version, not just a Steam version. We'll link it and make it play anywhere. They get a free copy, but wait, you put in a little extra effort to make an Xbox version. Here's some extra money
Yeah,
for
I
you.
wonder. I don't know what those numbers look like, but I don't think. developers are making a lot of money from the Xbox,
Yeah, I don't think
store,
so.
because I think almost everybody will buy it from Epic Game Store or
Yeah.
Steam for good reason, because the Xbox store version oftentimes is pretty broken and
Yeah.
inferior, right? But I think this is a good way of kind of forcing like a certain standard to be met, you
Yeah.
know? And if the end
So-
role is basically you're getting a PC version and an Xbox version
Yeah.
for every game that you buy, and you can play on any PC-like device or Xbox-like device, and the two eventually pretty much merge.
Yeah.
I mean, that I feel like that's their vision, and that's going to be a big moment for them, because
Yeah,
again,
it won't be now,
you'll
but
have you'll probably be able to boot into Steam then.
yes.
Right?
Well, it's not now, but eventually you'll be able to play native Xbox games eventually in handheld PC devices. So they're not there yet. They're trying to figure it out, and that's like some translation layer.
Yeah, this
that
is
they're
probably
trying
like
to
a
develop in.
halfway step.
It is a halfway step.
And they can't do it all the way, right? Because, those older Xbox games would be a pain
Yes,
with
to
backwards
figure out.
compatibility to now make them all Xbox, store, Windows, compatible, especially since Windows keeps evolving,
Yeah.
right? And so that would be, I don't even feel like that's worth it. It's such a nightmare, right?
Yeah, maybe. But they're getting, like you said, this is a half step. It's a good start, and this is a kind of a rush to the market, because I'm telling you, Steam OS has forced their hand in a good way.
I don't think there's any coincidence that you got the numbers on what the Steam version of that ROG looked like, and then the Windows version, and when it was just so clear as day, more than ever before, how much better Steam is.
Yeah, performing.
I think at that point Microsoft's like, oh my God,
this.
there's no way. If we're already this far behind, there's no way that anything we'll do will be successful, because Steam is going to be a bigger threat, because they could easily pivot and kill us, right? Like Steam could easily pivot into consoles, and you could have a Steam console, Steam handheld, Steam everything running on Linux. You have basically out Microsoft.
Yeah, because again, this all came about. Look, they both coexisted for years, right? In the last 10 years, where people would still buy games on Steam. They're like, we don't want to buy the Xbox PC version of it, but people were playing primarily on a PC. Now that they made Steam Deck, it forced them to find a new use case that said, oh, like we need to make an enhanced version of our OS that's more streamlined, that strips away a bunch of these processes. There's a need now. So the fact that Valve put out the Steam Deck and then said we can now take our OS and put it on third-party devices too, like the Legion Go.
Yeah,
that's what scared them.
I feel like Steam, like people focus so much on the different, like the rivalry between Xbox and Sony, but I think probably, I'm just totally guessing here, but I feel like what probably scares them more is Steam, right? Because
I mean,
again, if Steam made a console, right?
Yeah, they're going to,
and they want to, and they honestly, if Steam made a console, what is the purpose of an Xbox other than Game Pass?
Yeah, then there isn't anymore. Makes
it
it obsolete.
Because it makes it obsolete. Yeah. Because now you have the same, and think about the synergy. Think about how well everything will work together, because it's already working well together between your Steam console, your Steam handheld, your Steam library on your Steam PC that you've been slowly collecting for decades. Valve would be more of an existential threat to Xbox than Sony ever could, because Sony's not in the same way.
Because they went their whole PC strategy route with the Play Anywhere and the Game Pass PC. Like I said, Steam screws them more than Sony does. And the funny part is, again, I laughed, and I think it's a little disingenuous, that Sarah Bond comes on to talk about the ROG Ally, Xbox Ally. She goes, we're pushing the boundaries and we're innovating. It's like, no, you're doing this because you're being forced to.
And isn't it kind of funny that they talked about like all the compatibility with like the other BattleNet, all this type of thing. Specifically did not say Steam.
Yeah, did not say
Steam. I think that really goes to show you, like, Microsoft, they kind of have this like love-hate relationship with Steam, where like obviously the fact that Steam is as successful as it is keeps people buying Windows PCs, which helps Microsoft fight off Apple, which is another existential threat for them. But then at the same time, if Steam is too strong, then it can be an existential threat to Xbox.
Which is funny, because we've said this a lot, that Microsoft and Xbox is probably the now most consumer-friendly of the three OEMs, or now four if you want to say. But here's the funnier part. Every single time they go in a different direction, they're like, oh, we're going to innovate in this space. No one else has it here. Psych. Steam Deck and Valve. Oh, we go portable. Oh, Nintendo. Fuck. Oh, we go to consoles. PlayStation, Sony's.
But that's the thing.
We go to PC. fine.
That's the tech world, like everybody has iPhone. Well, not everybody, I don't, but most people love iPhones, right? And they'll always say, "Well, I know Apple does it later and last, but they do it best, right?" And
Yeah.
so people, in the end of the day, they just want the best.
Well,
right?
it's funny that like Microsoft's trying to carve out their own space, and every single time they do it, they go, someone keeps knocking on the front door. It's like the Grim Reapers, like not today, It's
Yeah.
like
Again, like I will. This sounds like such a dig on Microsoft, and I have to give Microsoft credit because they are really innovating. Like
Yeah,
they
they
are
are.
trying, and a lot of people they're so complacent. Like I looked at the new iOS update, and I'm like, really, it's a glass, like animations, like we're Windows Vista, like
God
seriously,
damn.
that was like the whole thing. So but I say that because, like, as much as I have to give Microsoft credit for trying to still be innovative, like Microsoft sometimes really does work harder, not smarter.
Yeah,
like
yeah, they work
Microsoft
harder.
feels like they are always like pushing a ball up a mountain.
Yeah,
And
then they're like, "Look at us! Look at what we did! It was so crazy." It's like you didn't have to. You could have
and
played it a
meanwhile,
little smarter.
Steam is just like, well, I got these Steam sales,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Game New is
It's
just
just
chilling.
like you're right.
And it's just like Steam is the definition of working smarter, not harder.
Yeah, I agree.
But anyways, so I think like those were some of the things I really liked about the showcase. I think to kind of just wrap up on a few more of my thoughts, I thought some of the third-party games were cool. Like I liked the fact that like Plague's Tale, High on Life 2, they're getting released sequels, or one of them is I guess
okay,
in the
but
universe.
can we talk about this because we just said this like moments ago or minutes ago? High on Life 2. They didn't show actual gameplay. You know what they did? Pre-rendered.
Yeah.
And you couldn't do that for Halo. You legitimately.
Hey, but if you think about it, that means that High on Life 2 felt like they needed to show something. And
agreed, but
Halo,
you don't think you needed to show something
I
that's
guess
that
not,
big?
man. They just want to cook. But
fudge it
but the thing is, if you think about it, a lot of like I know Halo has really had a lot of low moments, but it's still a recognizable IP, right?
No, but
I mean, think about how much we're talking about Halo, and they didn't even name drop Halo, right?
Yeah, they didn't even name
and how much we're talking about it. Just to goes to show you its repertoire. But like a lot of these smaller studios, like they have to lean on these flashy type of things for us to even be, I don't know. They think they need to do that to get our attention, I think it kind of shows more of an insecurity.
Yeah.
But I say all that because I'm happy like they are releasing sequels. I'm happy that they're going to be on Game Pass because it's showing, part of the strategy where it's just like, okay, we have these homegrown franchises that, were kind of these more indie darlings, and now they're developing into like whole big franchises that have a more recognizable Xbox name to them. So I'm happy they're doing that. But again, it wasn't like a drop the mic type of moment. It just felt like doing business, right? I thought some of their third party stuff looked really good. And I think they were trying to kind of say, hey, we're Microsoft. We help you find these amazing indies that are like basically better than AAAs like Clear Obscure and Lies of P. Let me show you this vampire game from the people who made Witcher, right? Which, okay, the game looks really cool, right? But it didn't also hit the same way as those games. And second, it's not on Game Pass.
Yes.
So, okay. And then Chronos, all right.
Yeah.
Chronos
that looks interesting.
Looked cool, I'm not going to lie. But again, it just felt like kind of odd timing and placement because, again, these are games that are going to be on every platform. And I think Chronos has been shown on PlayStation
I think
stuff before. Has. So those were, I don't think they were like the best bang for your buck, and so that's why I rated it kind of lower.
Yeah, I'd give it a B minus objectively.
I get it, but I give it B plus objectively. But I think the reason why I kind of settle on that is because I really felt like Clockwork and Outer Worlds exceeded my expectations. Even though I was disappointed in the Keeper game and Grounded 2 is not my forte, Microsoft was still able to show off more first party stuff than Sony.
No, see, you can't do that. This is an apples to oranges
comparison. I know. There was a joke.
Because Xbox was a showcase, Sony's was a state of play.
But
there's a difference.
I know, but Microsoft can have showcases every year. PlayStation can't.
I know, but I'm saying that's, to me, it's an apples to orange comparison.
It is. It was a joke. It was an apples to orange comparison because, come on now, like I would rate Marvel Token over those other games. Sure. Like I'm more interested in Token versus those games. But my point being is like.
But do you see why I gave this a B minus? Because it's not a good show.
I don't agree with you because I think if you're focused a lot on like surprise reveals and things like that, like I get it. But for me, like I'm fine with a showcase that just does business because what I was trying to get across is the first 6 months of this year were so stacked from Microsoft. That's insane. Like their first 6 months from a first party perspective has been better than pretty much any year that I can think of, right? And the fact that even after all of that came out, Microsoft still had two games that are going to be pretty successful for them in their back pocket that they showed off. Like to me, that's pretty impressive. Even if they're not the biggest things, like it just goes to show you that Microsoft has an insane amount of content.
Yeah.
So, I was happy to see that. I think the games that'll come out in the fall, like I'm gonna be happy with Ninja Gaiden. I'm gonna be happy with Outer Worlds. So all those things made me happy. And I guess in the end, knowing that Gears of War E-Day and a new Forza are for sure coming out, as for sure as we can in 2026, are pretty big announcements. Now, the way you delivered that information was really weird.
Yeah, it was the dumbest.
Because, but like if outside of that context, we had just found out that, oh my God, like there's a new Forza game and Gears E-Day is confirmed 2026. That is pretty big news because before now I was thinking Gears E-Day was in 2027, right?
Yeah. But then if this is 2026, then is the developer direct in January going to show off Gears, Forza, and then potentially Halo?
So I think the developer direct is. I don't think they care anymore how big a game is. I think they do not care at all.
Like weird.
I think if all three of those are scheduled to come out in the first 6 months of this year, they will show all of them.
No, I think they'll. But I think even if it was the later half of 2026, they would still show the developer direct.
So I think this year Ninja Gaiden was an exception, only because they wanted to do the whole surprise with Ninja Gaiden 2 remake and Ninja Gaiden.
Right.
I think Microsoft and all their other developer directs has shown things that have been the whole year, but I think their intended goal has always been the first 6 months.
Okay.
And a lot of times games are just slipping, right?
Yeah.
And I think Microsoft probably has enough content next year. I think they'll probably show off like Gears and Fable.
Fable! I keep forgetting about Fable.
And that's going to be huge, right?
Yeah.
And then they're probably going to show off like two big games in the beginning of the year, and then like another two in the showcase.
Yeah.
And which is insane to think about, because if now we're having a showcase and it's like 4 to 5 games, and 2 of them are potentially a Fable and Gears, like big. That is a stacked year. That would be like Sony showing off
like
God of War and Gorilla, God of War and Wolverine for the first 6 months, knowing that Last of Us is coming later in the year.
Yeah.
Like, of course, I think God of War and Last of Us have that repertoire that they're bigger than all those Xbox games, so it is an apples to oranges comparison. But those are your best cards, right? That's my point.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a good point. Yeah, I overall still enjoyed it. I liked this week. It felt like E3 all over again.
Yeah.
And I can't wait till we see more later in the year. So from Sony and obviously the TGAs. So.
Yeah. So I guess the last thing we could kind of say in closing, how do you like this format? Now that E3 is officially dead, the fact that we're getting these summer game showcases.
Well, I like that. Like
all the 3 platforms are still kind of leading the way.
Besides the Summer Game Fest, which is honestly like pointless to have someone mediating it, the State of Play and Xbox Showcase literally was back to back to back to back trailers. They do not stop. You get a trailer, and then as soon as it's done, it's another trailer. And then Phil Spencer comes out for a second, and Sarah Bond. But
they don't waste time the way they used to.
So honestly, I'm enjoying this way more than E3 now. So again, E3 was a fun event, but you got so much fluff and bloat. So this is more streamlined. I like it. I think with that.
The nice thing about E3 was getting everybody together and just having that bam, 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 like 3 days in a row, right? Like knowing that weekend is going to be E3. Yeah. So I like that part of it better. But I think like by design, now that you don't have to fill up like a whole day, right? Things are getting so much more streamlined, right? 100%. And you're not just tied to E3 anymore the way you used to be. And back then people would really force themselves to have something to show off for E3, where now it's like, okay, if a game's not ready to be shown at E3, that's fine. We'll show it off 3-4 months later in a mini showcase, right? Exactly. So I like that transition, but I do still miss, the 3 days, the conference, everybody's there, and really at the end, we're all debating, okay, which of the 3 were the best conference, right? And now you can't really do that because Microsoft, like, how do you say Microsoft's conference was, overall better than Sony's? You kind of can, but like at the same time, like most of those Microsoft games are going to be on the PlayStation, right? So then
there's a lot of overlap.
Yeah, and then so Nintendo could not care at all what anyone
Yeah.
else is doing. So we're just in a different world now.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like I said, it's not for the worse. It's just that the landscape changed, and they all pivoted to kind of align with
Yeah.
the new landscape. And again, everyone's strategy is different. Game Pass changed everything for Xbox. Sony, while they dominated initially, like the console wars, what's they've gone through some turbulence, and so they're trying to really acclimate to that. And then Nintendo always starts the next generation like 3 to 4 years early now. So this is a new trend for them too. So it's like, hey, I'm understanding of all of it, and I'm okay. It's not like we're missing out on a bunch, right? I like the fact that all these companies shadow drop when they do their next presentations. It's kind of fun that like, we were like, oh my god, another one's coming out in the second half. You're like,
Yeah, you
oh
never know when it's
shit,
gonna
like
come.
okay. So I'm okay with that actually.
Yeah, yeah, I feel you. So
All right.
all right, I think that's a wrap for now. So, these last 2 weeks have been not as crazy for us, I think, in terms of gaming and watching stuff because there's just been so much
Yeah.
showcase stuff. But
And we've been busy personally. You went traveling.
yeah, it's
Like,
summertime, so people want to get out of the house more.
yeah.
But
I heard you were going blind or something.
yeah, my doctor told me, and it was the funniest thing. She straight up told me, your eyes are so bad we can't do LASIK. And I was like, all right, doc, what do I do? How do I get better? And she was like, there's this thing called walking outside when the weather's nice. I know it's Michigan, but you basically go outside in your neighborhood, go in a circle, look at things far away. And I was like, damn, okay. So you don't think I get any sunlight? Thanks. So I've been getting a lot of crap from the wife and everybody like, hey, you need to stop staring at a small screen.
Well, I'm kind of glad then I got you the Switch 2 so you can continue staying.
Well, the screen's bigger now, so.
Yeah, that's true.
But also in the wintertime, what else are you gonna do?
Yeah, come on, man. We live in a state where there's a lot of snow. So.
It's Michigan. But. So yeah, I think next time, I was finally able to play Claire and Doom, right? So I'll give some updates on that and go from there.
Yeah, and we might have a special guest on the next episode to talk more about Claire Obscures.
So, all right, take care, everybody.